Wang Lin stayed at an inn inside the city for 3 days. During this time many people came to visit him. He put away his usual indifferent attitude and got to know many people. Most of these nascent soul cultivators weren't from the city. They came to participate in the secret exchange. Wang Lin's battle with the bald man caught all of their attention. After all, strength was what mattered in the Sea of Devils, and Wang Lin was able to easily defeat the bald man. His display of strength was what made all of these nascent soul cultivators personally come to visit. The 3 days passed and it was now the day of the secret exchange. That morning, a core formation cultivator came and politely gave Wang Lin an invitation. Then the core formation cultivator led Wang Lin to the shop. After the old man from the shop saw Wang Lin, he quickly became very respectful. He carefully led Wang Lin to a wall, then tapped it a few times. After that, the walls rippled like calm water that just had a stone dropped into it. After doing all of that, he took out a robe and gave it to Wang Lin. Wang Lin stood there but didn't step forward. He sent his divine sense inside. He found that there was a separate space inside with a very beautiful loft. There were 7 or 8 cultivators inside, all wearing the same robes. Some were sitting by themselves while others were talking to each other. When Wang Lin sent in his divine sense, only a middle-aged scholarly-looking man opened his eyes. No one else seemed to have noticed Wang Lin's divine sense. This scholarly man was also the only person who wasn't wearing a robe. The scholarly man's expression remained the same, but a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. Wang Lin was startled. When he scanned everyone with his divine sense, he found that everyone present was at the early stage of nascent soul, everyone except the scholarly man. Although the scholarly man seemed like he was at the early stage of nascent soul, in reality, he was already at the peak of the late stage of nascent soul and was only one step from the spirit-severing stage. Wang Lin didn't know what technique this person cultivated, but the scholarly man's divine soul had to be very powerful to be able to detect Wang Lin. After withdrawing his divine sense, Wang Lin took the robe and put it on. Then without a word he walked into the wall. When he appeared inside the new area, he found a table to sit down at by himself and closed his eyes. This action immediately caused the few cultivators who wanted to talk to him change their minds. Although Wang Lin's eyes were closed, his divine sense was keeping close track of the scholarly man. From the moment he walked into the room, the scholarly man was constantly staring at him. After a while, several more cultivators came. All of them were wearing one of those robes to hide their faces, and some were even surrounded by a black fog. After seeing this, Wang Lin realized that these people didn't want anyone to recognize them. If they revealed who they were, then when they showed off their treasures it would cause them a lot of trouble. However, many cultivators here weren't hiding their faces. It seemed they were confident in themselves and weren't afraid of revealing their identities. But Wang Lin still had doubts in his mind. How could there be so many nascent soul cultivators gathered here, in this small shop in Lianmo City? He secretly looked around and saw more than 30 tables around. Could there be more than 30 nascent soul cultivators participating in this secret exchange? Although he had some doubts in his heart, his expression was completely calm. Wang Lin waited for a bit longer. After some time has passed and no more cultivators arrived, an old man that was sitting in the front got up. He coughed once and said, "This secret exchange is hosted by 3 cities, so there are more people than normal. But since everyone here is looking for something, I believe that you will find what you need. I'll go first." With that, he took out a bag of holding and dumped out several cores and magic treasures. The treasures released large amounts of spiritual power, showing how powerful they were. He slowly said, "These cores are from mid-quality spirit beasts. As you all know, these beasts are equal to late-stage nascent soul cultivators in strength. These magic treasure are all made from the bones of mid-quality spirit beasts, especially this bell. I'll only take spirit stones for these items." The items just floated before the old man. If anyone was interested, they only had to wave their hand and the item would immediately fly into their hands. No one was afraid that anyone would steal in these secret exchanges. After all, this room contained powerful restrictions. If anyone dared to steal and run, they would only be looking for death. Wang Lin gained all of this information from the people he talked to during the past 3 days. The moment he heard that this exchange was hosted by 3 cities, he understood that this place was a special space. There must have been many shops spread throughout the 3 cities, and the cultivators only had to pick one of them to enter here. As a result, the safety of the participants would be guaranteed. After waiting for a long time, one cultivator traded spirit stones for the bell. No one else made an offer. Soon it was the next person's turn. Slowly, various magic treasures, pills, and scrolls were displayed. All of them had high prices. It just showed how precious the items sold here were. Any one of these items could be placed at the highest floor of the treasure refining pavilion and be sold at an astronomical price. Most of these cultivators here only exchanged. The things they liked the most were pill and treasure materials. Of course, if there were complete pills and treasures, they were good too. After that was spirit stones. If it was before the fog surrounding the Sea of Devils disappeared, then there wouldn't be much use for spirit stones. Their value was low as they were only sometimes needed for cultivation. After the fog disappeared and beasts began to cover the Sea of Devils, people started to use transfer arrays more and more. There were 2 types of transfer arrays. One was ancient transfer arrays, made by ancient cultivators. Only a few remained and many of them were damaged, so very few could be used. Depending on the amount of spirit stones used, they could teleport someone at least 1 million kilometers away. However, to use them, you have to use a top-quality spirit stone, so no one in the Sea of Devils could use them. After all, top-quality spirit stones were almost extinct. Even if someone had some, very few people would be willing to use one on a transfer array. The other type was normal transfer arrays. These were much simpler. Their cost ranged from 10 low-quality spirit stones to less than 100 mid-quality spirit stones. At most, they could teleport several hundred kilometers. Because they were so cost-effective, they were the preferred method of travel among cultivators. But as a result, the consumption of spirit stones increased and so did their value. After a number of exchanges, it was now the turn of a cultivator wearing a raincoat. His head was lowered as he said with a hoarse voice, "I don't have many things to sell, only some ancient texts. If any fellow cultivators are interested, you can exchange for them, but due to the nature of these texts, I can't allow you to have a closer look." With that, he slapped his bag of holding and 7 or 8 pieces of jade flew out. The colors of these jades were all very faded and some of them even had cracks. They each released an ancient aura showing how old they were. Surrounding these jades was a shield of green light. Clearly, this was a technique used to prevent people from checking inside them. This is an ancient beast catalog. This is ancient cultivator world secret text. This is an ancient transfer array production recipe. I will only take cores of mid-quality spirit beasts. 5 cores for one of them. With that, he waited for the people to inquire about the texts. All of the people in the room frowned. Even 5 of those jades for one mid-quality beast core wasn't really worth it. How could the reverse be true? In reality, the man in the raincoat also sighed. He really didn't have anything to sell besides these jades either. He found them in the cave of an ancient cultivator. The ancient cultivator was very poor and only had these jades. The first time the man tried to sell them, he didn't set the price too high, but after being ignored in so many exchanges, he decided to go for a sky-high price. He thought that these things were useless to most people and for someone that really wanted one, they would buy it no matter the price. In fact, he guessed correctly. The moment Wang Lin heard about the ancient transfer array production jade, his heart started pounding. He never thought that he would find the jade about ancient transfer arrays that he had been working so hard to find here. Without a word, he waved his right hand and broke the shield around the jade that contained information about the ancient transfer arrays and took it. The man wearing the raincoat was shocked and his face suddenly became ugly. He knew that the green light wasn't strong, but to so easily break it was not something he could do. He believed that not even mid-stage nascent soul cultivators could break it so easily, meaning that the only explanation was that this person was a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. After taking the jade, Wang Lin scanned it with his divine sense and put it away. At the same time, he took out 5 cores of mid-quality spirit beasts. The man wearing the raincoat quickly caught the cores and let out a sigh. He didn't pursue the matter about breaking the green light. After waiting for a while and seeing that no one else was interested, he put away the pieces of jade. The moment Wang Lin acted, 3 other cultivators started to pay extra attention to him. One of them was the scholarly man. The other 2 had their coats on. Their eyes lit up when they raised their heads. After a short period of silence, another cultivator walked up to present his items. Soon it was Wang Lin's turn. At this moment, everyone became silent and turned to look at Wang Lin. Wang Lin's actions revealed that his cultivation was not simple. These cultivators were very curious about what Wang Lin would sell. After pondering a little, Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding. Several mid-quality spirit beast cores and a few treasures he never used flew out. Seeing that Wang Lin only brought out some very common items, they became very disappointed. However, their expressions all remained the same. After all, each of them had reached the nascent soul stage. Having cultivated for so long, they were very skilled at hiding their expressions. Wang Lin slowly said, "I'd like to trade for a map of planet Suzaku. The more complete, the better." The moment the words came out, the expressions of all of the cultivators became strange. After a long time, one of them said, "Fellow cultivator, with just these things it would be very hard to trade for a map. I'm afraid you won't even be able to trade for a map of just the Sea of Devils." Wang Lin calmly said, "Oh? Then what do I need to trade for a map?" The scholarly man let out a warm smile and said, "Fellow cultivator must be new to the Sea of Devils, so I'll explain it. Not just the Sea of Devils, but for any cultivation country, a map is very important. After all, planet Suzaku is simply too large. If you don't have a map, you won't know where to go. As for the Sea of Devils, it is even more important. A copy of the map of Sea of Devils would cost 100,000 high-quality spirit stones, and no one would even take low-quality or mid-quality spirit stones. With just fellow cultivators' treasures, it is simply not enough. As for the map of planet Suzaku, it's not something any individual can own. If fellow cultivator wants, I have a map of the Sea of Devils. However, it is only a low-quality one with a lot of unexplored areas." Wang Lin pondered a little and asked, "Does fellow cultivator have a general wide area map of the countries surrounding the Sea of Devils?" The scholarly man warily smiled as he shook his head and said, "I don't have that kind of map." A cultivator in a robe sitting in the corner suddenly said, "I have one." This was one of the cultivators whose eyes lit up when Wang Lin acted earlier. Wang Lin's gaze fell on the person. The cultivator in the robe slowly said, "A high-quality map of the Sea of Devils with the 4 surrounding continents, including 148 countries. What price are you willing to offer?" The moment those words came out, all of the cultivators turned around and their eyes lit up. A high-quality map was already very rare, but this one even included the surrounding 4 continents and 148 countries. That was almost of planet Suzaku. The price of the map would be unimaginably high. Wang Lin pondered a little. Currently, he had 2 maps in his possession. One was the one he got from Chiu Siping and other was the one he got from the Battle God's Temple. The map from the Battle God's Temple only contained detailed information about the country and its surrounding areas up to the outer sea of the Sea of Devils. Farther than that, like the inner sea of the Sea of Devils, was very vague and some transfer arrays weren't even mapped. As for the area across the Sea of Devils, there was not even a vague mark, only the range of some mountains. When Wang Lin analyzed the map, he believed that Zhao was on the other side, but it was only a guess. This was why he didn't immediately act, but went to search for a more complete map. Wang Lin pondered a little and asked, "What do you want?" The cultivator sent a message via divine sense. "Fellow cultivator, if you're not in a hurry, how about we talk about it after the exchange in private?" Wang Lin looked at the person and nodded. Everyone realized what happened and didn't pay any more attention. However, they were all very curious about what Wang Lin will use to exchange for such a precious item. An hour later, the secret exchange ended and everyone left. Wang Lin left the room and took off the robe. A beautiful female attendant was already there waiting for him. After seeing Wang Lin, she respectfully said, "Senior, my master said he has a meeting with you, so he asked me to take you to him." Wang Lin's heart shook and he became more alert, but his expression remained calm. He looked at the female. She was not a virgin and was only at the mid-stage of foundation establishment. However, her spiritual power was every week. She clearly reached this level through a lot of drugs. Wang Lin's heart already had some guesses about the situation. Under the woman's guidance, Wang Lin arrived at an inconspicuous residence in the middle of the city. She stopped outside the door and said, "Senior, please enter." Junior will stand guard out here. Wang Lin didn't say anything pointless and walked inside. He had already sent his divine sense inside. He saw an old man with a hooked nose wearing a red shirt. He was sitting there with a green teapot beside him. When the old man saw Wang Lin enter, he laughed and said, "Come sit, fellow cultivator. This is a high-quality tea from the country of Hofun. I made this tea especially for entertaining friends." Wang Lin clasped his hands and sat across from the old man. He didn't even look at the tea but started to check the surroundings. He could easily see that this old man was at the mid-stage of nascent soul. The old man didn't mind and personally poured 2 cups of tea. He sipped his tea and said, "What is fellow cultivator's name?" Wang Lin smiled and said, "Wang Lin." The old put down his cup and gently smiled. "Fellow cultivator Wang, my name is Zhou Wuda." Wang Lin was stunned as he looked at the old man. The old man saw Wang Lin's expression and asked, "Has fellow cultivator Wang heard of me?" Wang Lin shook his head and calmly said, "No, it's just that fellow cultivator has the same name as a friend of mine, so I lost myself for a second there." The old man burst out laughing but secretly thought, "What does this person mean? Did he purposely act like this to mess with me?" The old man couldn't figure out what Wang Lin was thinking, but he laughed and said, "If there is an opportunity, I would like to meet this person." With that, he slapped his bag of holding. He took out a bag of holding and said, "Fellow cultivator Wang, this is the map I was talking about. I'll display it to you. After you check it and make sure that there is no problem, we can talk about our deal." The jade released a gentle light as the old man sent out a bit of spiritual power. Immediately, the jade displayed a giant map before Wang Lin. This map was extremely detailed. It even had detailed descriptions of the level of damage of each of the ancient transfer arrays. It also had details of the situation surrounding each area, and even the names of all of the nascent soul and higher cultivators. These were not the focus, but it even had detailed information of where each ancient transfer array linked to. Just this point would cause the price of this map to skyrocket. What caused Wang Lin to be even more excited was that there were even some details about the power of each country. It even had some detailed recording of mines and lairs of wild beasts. As a result, this map was unimaginably precious. If all of these things weren't tempting enough for Wang Lin, then this shocked him completely. The surroundings of the Sea of Devils didn't have only 2 continents like the map he got from the Battle God's Temple, but 4. On the map, it clearly showed 4 continents surrounding the Sea of Devils. On the continent to the left, he could see the very small word Zhao. The old man casually pointed at a location on the map. The map suddenly disappeared and showed the area where the old man pointed to. The entire map looked like if someone was looking at that location from a bird's eye view. Then, the old man waved his right hand and the map disappeared. He put the jade back into his bag of holding and stared at Wang Lin. Wang Lin's gaze was calm as he looked at the old man. He already had the urge to kill this person. As long as he killed him, he could get the piece of jade and quickly return to the country of Zhao. The old man immediately retreated a few steps and said, "Fellow cultivator, this jade is very old and will easily break. To prevent it from breaking, I have already linked it with my divine sense." Wang Lin's gaze was calm as he slowly said, "What do you want?" The old man clenched his teeth and said, "As long as you help me kill one person, I'll give you this piece of jade." A cold light flashed across Wang Lin's eyes. He asked, "What level of cultivation?" The old man quickly said, "Late-stage nascent soul, half a step into spirit severing." Wang Lin stood up and calmly said, "Now? Lead the way." The old man was stunned. After hesitating for a while, he said, "Okay, fellow cultivator Wang, follow me." In the blink of an eye, the two left Lianmo City. 3,000 kilometers from the city was a basin. After a short period of time, the two arrived at the place. Wang Lin spread out his divine sense and let out a sneer in his heart. He had already realized that something was wrong. The old man seemed to already know him very well. The female attendant immediately walked up to him when they met. He already thought that there was a scheme behind all of this. Wang Lin purposely used the friend with the same name phrase to test the old man, and with his powerful divine sense, he noticed that the old man's emotions flustered a little. Looking at things now, it was exactly as he predicted. Under the basin was a formation hiding 4 nascent soul cultivators. Wang Lin calmly said, It is regrettable that the bald man died. Or the 6 of you could perfectly use the no-escape killing formation. The hook-nosed man's expression suddenly changed, and at that moment Wang Lin's G realm moved. The old man didn't even have time to break the jade. He could only see the red light before him. The old man heard Wang Lin's words and was shocked. He turned around and saw rows of red lightning. They were the last things he saw in his life. The G realm shot out and instantly destroyed the old man's body. Just as his nascent soul was about to escape, Wang Lin's palm hit the old man's chest. A wave of spiritual energy entered the old man's body, trapping the nascent soul inside. The old man could only watch as Wang Lin took his nascent soul and devoured it. In the eyes of the 4 people hiding in the basin, Wang Lin was now a demon. Killing someone for their nascent soul, and then devouring it directly completely contradicted their normal beliefs. It has to be said that all of these people were demonic cultivators. They had seen many people killed for their nascent souls, but never had they seen one being devoured directly. They felt that Wang Lin was the real demonic cultivator here. The 4 people that were going to ambush Wang Lin were all shaken. They quickly left the basin and escaped in different directions. But those 4 had decided to bother Wang Lin. Without Wang Lin even moving, his G realm immediately caught up to the 4 of them and killed them. Wang Lin used a lot of nascent energy in order for his G realm to kill 5 people in a row. He quickly grabbed the nascent souls of the 4 cultivators and devoured them. The ancient god's tactic quickly absorbed the nascent souls. Wang Lin was able to replenish all of the used-up nascent energy, and even increased his cultivation level a little. After that, Wang Lin gathered all of their bags of holdings and opened them one by one. First, Wang Lin checked to make sure that the map jade was still intact and let out a breath. Although there were some magic treasures in the remaining bags, only one thing caught Wang Lin's attention. The moment he saw this item, his spiritual energy shook with his emotions. After a while, he calmed down as he stared at the object in his hand. It was a sword sheath. A normal-looking sword sheath. A sword sheath emitting an ancient aura. Wang Lin took a deep breath and took a few careful look. There was a weird expression on his face. This sword sheath looked exactly like the sword sheath from back then, but he knew that this wasn't the same one. The sword sheath from back then had been refined by Wang Lin's cold core, so if he were to hold it once more, he would know. Although this sword sheath looked exactly same as the one from back then, Wang Lin knew it was not the same. The other thing that made him sure that it was not the same was that because Wang Lin had used that sword sheath many times, he knew that there was a strange carving in the middle of the sheath. Although this sheath also had a strange carving, it was not the same one. After pondering for a little, Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and took out a normal flying sword and slowly put it into the sheath. When it went in 3 out of 5 of the way, he felt a powerful pressure preventing the sword from going in further. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He used some spiritual power and pushed the sword down of the way. Wang Lin's expression changed as he felt a tremendous killing intent coming from the sheath. Almost without hesitation, he dropped the sword in the sheath. The sword was pushed out and shattered into pieces. Following that was a large amount of killing intent from the sword sheath. At that moment, the sky suddenly darkened and a deep gully extending for hundreds of meters appeared on the basin below Wang Lin. Wang Lin's scalp felt numb. He looked at the sheath and took a deep breath. Then he carefully put the sword sheath away in his bag of holding, and didn't dare to touch it anymore. With his current cultivation level, he could easily see that a tremendous amount of killing intent was sealed inside the sword sheath. When he forced the sword in, it released a bit of it, but just that bit was already so powerful that Wang Lin couldn't even imagine what power the sheath held. As a result, he was even more sure that this sheath wasn't the same as the one from back then. The sheath back then had the ability to increase the strength of a flying sword. The difference in increase in power from 1/5 of the way in to 3 to 5 of the way in was huge. After pondering for a while, Wang Lin became curious about the sword sheath. He felt that there were more than just 2 of these sword sheaths. Inside a volcano in the country of Hofun, the volcano had been turned from an active to a dead volcano by cultivators. It no longer contained any lava. Inside it were many large and small rooms, and inside every room was a cultivator. These people were the survivors of the destruction of the country of Hofun. Back then, Hofun was attacked by Xuanwu along with several other countries. The 4 major sects were evicted, and that was also when Li Muan was forced to leave her home. Under this volcano there was a complete building. This was the Battle God's Temple. It took several nascent soul cultivators to move this when they were attacked. The temple contained the remains of countless ancestors of the Battle God's Temple, and many of their techniques. At this moment, among the many crystal rooms, one glowed. Immediately, a withered hand raised and a withered body walked out of the room. After he walked out, he pressed the ground with this right hand. Suddenly, green energy gathered from the entire temple and entered his body. Slowly, his body started to regrow its muscles and skin. Shortly after, a youth emitting an eerie atmosphere appeared. This person looked very handsome, but also had a hint of evil. His eyes revealed an ancient light as he slowly became conscious. He pondered for a while and muttered, 3,000 years of healing, and I finally allowed my cultivation to recover to 30%. He formed a fist with his right hand. He frowned and said to himself, almost the same as soul transformation. Although it is not enough, with the help of the star disk, it should be enough to escape from this planet. My recovery will go a lot faster if I return to my home planet. He took a deep breath and slapped his hand at his waist, but his expression suddenly turned strange as he hit nothing. He looked at this waist and was stunned for a moment before his face became dark. Without a word, he waved his hand and a crystal screen appeared before him. The image on the screen constantly moved until it paused at one moment. This scene clearly showed Wang Lin entering this room and taking the bag of holding. The youth stared at the Wang Lin in the image. He closed his eyes and spread out his divine sense. As his divine sense spread, he could feel the fluctuations of spiritual energy from his bag of holding. He opened his eyes and his body disappeared from the room. He reappeared in the sky above the sea of devils and shouted, Ghost soul searching technique. Suddenly, countless green lights came out from his body. Each of the green lights turned into the same shape as the youth and spread out. The youth's body disappeared in a flash. As for Wang Lin, he was currently standing on top of the mosquito beast. He was holding a piece of jade in his hand. This jade was the one containing the map. Wang Lin was very anxious. He wished he could increase his speed by 10x, 100x, 1000x. He wished he could just instantly return to the country of Zhao, but reality was very cruel. After he got the map, he found that he was very far from the country of Zhao. If he relied on just flying, it would take him several years to reach his home country. This was obviously not what Wang Lin wanted, so that meant that he had to use ancient transfer arrays. The good thing was that the map contained detailed information about the ancient transfer arrays, so after spending some time, Wang Lin mapped out a route for himself to return to Zhao. On this route, he must pass through 3 ancient transfer arrays. 1 in the Sea of Devils and 2 on the continent that Zhao was in. The direction Wang Lin was heading toward was the direction of the ancient transfer array. The map said that the transfer array's integrity was not high, but still usable. However, Wang Lin wasn't sure how old the information on this map was, or if the ancient transfer array was still there, or if it was even still usable. With these questions in mind, Wang Lin urged the mosquito beast below him to move faster. This ancient transfer array was at the edge of the inner sea, so he came across a lot of beasts on the way. He had already encountered several high-quality wild beasts and even a desolate beast. It was a good thing that his divine sense was so powerful. He always detected them ahead of time and went around them. A month after Wang Lin's non-stop travel, he finally arrived at the ancient transfer array. Below him was a plain covered by numerous underwater plants. After being nurtured by the black rain, the plants were evolving into beasts and their offensive powers had greatly increased. They stretched out their red leaves and waved them back and forth. From above, it all looked very pretty, but Wang Lin spread out his divine sense and found an ocean of bones below the plants. There were bones of both cultivators and wild beasts under them. Wang Lin pondered for a while. When he spread out his divine sense, he found the transfer array. He jumped off the mosquito beast's back and arrived at the ancient transfer array in the blink of an eye. Wang Lin frowned. There were too many red leaves growing here. Not only did they cover part of the transfer array, there were some plants that had taken root in the transfer array. This meant that the transfer array must have taken some damage. His eyes lit up. He waved his hand and a black sword flew out like black lightning toward the plants on the ground. Every time it cut one of the plants, The plant would spew out red, blood-like liquid. Soon, the entire ground was covered in it. Slivers of dangerous aura came from the ground as more plants grew back from the liquid. This time, the plants were even larger and more colorful. Wang Lin's heart sank. He waved his hand and the flying sword came back. However, the flying sword now was very dim. It looked very drained. Both of Wang Lin's hands formed a seal. Suddenly, a gust of wind appeared around the sword, removing the liquid that was stuck to it. Once all of the liquid was removed, the sword returned to its normal state. After taking a look, Wang Lin put away the flying sword. Staring at the endless ocean of plants, he slapped his bag of holding and took out the restriction flag. He shook his hand and the restriction flag immediately became large and started to cover the ground. 99 restrictions formed 99 dragons. The dragons crazily circled the ancient restriction. Each time the dragons circled the restriction, countless red plants would die and spew out endless amounts of red liquid. Wang Lin's hands quickly sent out a few seals and he shouted, "Open!" Suddenly, the sea of red liquid split in the middle, as if there were giant hands pushing it apart. The red liquid moved to the side, revealing the ancient transfer array. Wang Lin no longer hesitated as he landed and recorded the ancient transfer array onto a piece of jade. He flew back into the air and waved his hand to recover the restriction flag. After the restriction flag returned to Wang Lin, the red liquid covered the transfer array once more. One by one, even larger plants started to cover the area. Their height had already reached a dozen feet, which was 3 times taller than before. Wang Lin floated in the air and looked at the jade with a serious expression. After a long time, he revealed a pondering expression and left without a word. During the month it took for Wang Lin to get here, he had started studying the ancient transfer array construction manual that he got for 5 mid-quality beast cores. Although the concept of ancient transfer arrays was complicated, Wang Lin already had good knowledge of formations and transfer arrays. Adding on the fact that he only wanted to repair and not build, he was able to gain some insight about them. However, with just his knowledge, he didn't know if he could do it, but if he had to find someone in the Sea of Devils who specialized in ancient transfer arrays, that would be very difficult unless 6 Desire Devil Lord came back to life. Wang Lin searched for 7 days according to the description in the map, before he finally found another ancient transfer array. The place was filled with wild beasts, but the mosquito beast quickly drove them all away. What surprised Wang Lin the most was that this transfer array was completely intact. After studying it for a while, his eyes landed on a part of the transfer array. This part was clearly different from the other parts. Wang Lin was stunned. He realized that this part was added in later by someone who had repaired this ancient transfer array. Wang Lin pondered a bit. He couldn't figure out why someone would want to fix this transfer array. Could they have also just wanted to transfer to another continent like him? A moment later, Wang Lin removed some parts from the transfer array. He hesitated a bit and destroyed part of the array before leaving on the back of the mosquito beast. Wang Lin had already taken apart 3 transfer arrays, but this left him feeling like there was a heavy rock weighing down his heart. Of the 3 transfer arrays he had visited, 2 of them were completely intact and both showed signs of being repaired by someone. If only 1 transfer array was repaired, it wouldn't be a big deal, but several transfer arrays were repaired, meaning there was something going on. Wang Lin had a vague feeling that something big was about to happen in the Sea of Devils. Presumably, the reason the transfer array that he needed wasn't repaired was because it was covered in plants, it didn't transfer to the right location, or it was not found. After taking the parts he needed from the complete transfer arrays, he would completely destroy them. Only by doing that would he feel a bit less pressured. When Wang Lin finally gathered enough materials from the transfer arrays, his body suddenly disappeared from the spot. Just after he disappeared, a sword stabbed into the ground where Wang Lin was just standing. Wang Lin's expression was gloomy as he appeared in mid-air, staring at the black-clothed man in the distance. He always kept his divine sense spread out, but he didn't notice that person until they were within 100 feet of him and threw that sword. It has to be said that Wang Lin's divine sense was as powerful as a spirit-severing cultivator's. If it was a normal nascent soul cultivator, they wouldn't have noticed anything until the sword pierced their body. If this cultivator was in the spirit-severing stage, then it wouldn't be much of an issue, but Wang Lin checked and this person was only in the mid-stage of nascent soul. This person must have some special technique to hide their presence from Wang Lin's divine sense. Wang Lin's eyes revealed killing intent. If he allowed someone like this to live, then he will have to live with the feeling of someone always ready to attack him at any time. Wang Lin decided that he must kill this person at any cost. He immediately activated his G realm without any regard to the amount of nascent energy it would cost. The black-clothed man was middle-aged, a bit thin, and had a very mean-looking face. After seeing that Wang Lin escaped his sneak attack, he took out a stone stamp from his bag of holding. He let out a roar and the stone stamp started to spin. It grew larger with every spin. Once it reached the size of a small mountain, it crashed down toward Wang Lin. However, the moment he sent out the stone stamp, his face turned pale as he saw the red lightning in Wang Lin's eyes and immediately turned around to escape. He even abandoned his magic treasure to escape. The magic treasure, without anyone to control it, immediately shrunk back to the size of a palm and fell to the ground. Wang Lin frowned. His G realm shot out and immediately caught up to the person. The man revealed a horrified expression. He clenched his teeth, and just as the G realm entered his body exploded. Suddenly, the power of the self-explosion sent shock waves in all directions. At the center of the explosion, a rift appeared, and an extremely weak-looking nascent soul disappeared into it. Wang Lin's G realm quickly followed it into the rift. After a few breaths of time, the G realm reappeared and returned to Wang Lin. Wang Lin's expression was gloomy. Although his G realm killed the person, from the look of that person's face, it seemed that they knew about the G realm. The person even knew the power the G realm possessed. So he was willing to blow up his body to try to escape through a rift in space. Wang Lin pondered a little before quickly turning around and leaving. Since the person exploded, all of his bags of holding were gone too, leaving no trace. After a few days, Wang Lin returned to the transfer array covered by the red plants and began his repair. During the restoration period, the restriction flag was constantly active. This was the only way to prevent the red plants from taking over again. After 3 days of careful restoration, Wang Lin finished fixing the array. In 3 days, Wang Lin spent almost all of his energy to repair the transfer array. When he finished, he sat down cross-legged to recover his lost spiritual energy. After he was fully recovered, he placed a top-quality spirit stone into the socket of the transfer array. After waiting for a long time, there was no reaction. Wang Lin was startled. He replaced the top-quality spirit stone with another. However, even after changing spirit stones, there was still no reaction. Wang Lin's heart sank. After pondering for a bit, he placed his hand on the socket. He clenched his teeth and sent spiritual power from his body into the transfer array. As his spiritual energy entered the transfer array, it gradually started waking up. However, it was a bit too ambitious to try to open an ancient transfer array with only the spiritual power of a nascent soul cultivator. Shortly after, Wang Lin started to feel that the spiritual energy in his body was almost gone. He quickly took out a jade bottle and dumped what was inside into his mouth to keep his spiritual energy up. After a long time, Wang Lin withdrew his spiritual energy and started to cultivate. After recovering all of his spiritual energy, he walked to the northeast corner of the transfer array. Before, when Wang Lin sent his spiritual energy into the transfer array, he wasn't trying to activate it, but was checking if there was anything wrong with it. When his spiritual power reached the northeast corner, he felt a large amount of spiritual power dissipate there. He understood what the problem was. He took that part of the transfer array, jumped into the air, and retrieved the restriction flag. The nearby transfer arrays had already all been taken apart by him for parts, so he had to search wider for more ancient transfer arrays. Wang Lin quickly charged toward an ancient transfer array that was about 8 days away. On the 4th day, he passed by a transfer array that he had taken apart earlier. He didn't pay much attention to it, but just as he was about to leave, that transfer array suddenly lit up. Wang Lin stopped and his eyes lit up as he looked at the array. However, due to the heavy damage the transfer array had taken, the light slowly faded. Wang Lin didn't withdraw his gaze until the light completely faded. It was clear that the reason the transfer array lit up was because somewhere far away, someone activated a transfer array to teleport to here. However, due to the heavy damage the transfer array had taken, it wasn't able to activate. That feeling of danger in Wang Lin's heart became even stronger. He took a deep breath and pushed it out of his mind. Although Wang Lin knew what was going to happen, it was not important right now because he didn't have the ability to stop it. The only thing on his mind right now was to find an ancient transfer array to take apart for parts and to repair the one he needed to use. He used his top speed and flew toward the transfer array. On the 8th day, he arrived at the ancient transfer array indicated on the map. With one look, Wang Lin's scalp tingled. This transfer array was also in perfect condition. He didn't hesitate, but just as he was about to take apart the ancient transfer array, it suddenly lit up. Pillars of light shot up into the sky and the blurry figures of people appeared in the transfer array. A powerful killing intent appeared with those people as their figures were quickly becoming more solid. Almost the same instant the transfer array lit up, Wang Lin grabbed the materials at the northeastern corner. Spiritual power surged inside his body to forcibly remove that piece. The moment he was pulling the material out, an angry roar came from one of the figures. "Stop!" Not only did Wang Lin not stop, but he worked faster and pulled out that piece of the array. Then, he raised his head and coldly stared at the figures as they slowly disappeared along with the light. If he had really stopped, then the moment those figures completely arrived, they would instantly try to kill him. Since the group dared to invade the Sea of Devils, there must be spirit-severing cultivators among them. In that moment, almost all of the ancient arrays in the Sea of Devils lit simultaneously. Not all of the ancient transfer arrays had a black-clothed man guarding it, only a few of the important locations. The moment these people arrived in the Sea of Devils, they released a monstrous killing intent. As for the transfer array Wang Lin was at, there was also a black-clothed man, however. He had already been killed by Wang Lin. The Sea of Devils went into a complete uproar. The tension building up in the air finally exploded. For cultivation countries teamed up to attack the Sea of Devils and sent tens of thousands of cultivators in through the ancient transfer arrays. A huge battle had started in the Sea of Devils. The 999 cities in the Sea of Devils quickly became bloody battlegrounds. Wang Lin had already guessed what was happening the moment he saw the ancient transfer arrays completely repaired and the black-clothed men guarding them. After he saw the figures in the transfer array, he was even more sure. Wang Lin felt that he must quickly leave the Sea of Devils. As he flew, he touched the materials he needed and took a deep breath. A few days later, Wang Lin returned to the transfer array and replaced the northeastern corner piece. He took a good look at the Sea of Devils and placed the top-quality spirit stone into the socket. Rings of light appeared. The moment the transfer array opened, Wang Lin sent out a seal, causing all of the restrictions on the restriction flag to explode outwards. The restriction flag quickly cleared out the area, leaving the ground covered in red liquid. The transfer array was completely opened and Wang Lin's figure started to slowly disappear. Right as he was about to disappear, he waved his hand and the restriction flag returned to him. After he disappeared, the red liquid immediately covered the transfer array and plants dozens of feet tall started growing. There was simply too many plants. With cracking sounds, the transfer array broke and more plants grew in its cracks. At this point, even with a map, it was hard to tell that this place contained an ancient transfer array. A day later, a youth covered in an evil aura stared at the ground covered with plants with a cold gaze. This person was the cultivator that rushed here from Hofan. If someone knew that this person had only spent a few months to travel from Hofan to the inner Sea of Devils, they would be horrified. The distance between Hofan and the Sea of Devils was enormous. Even Donghua had to use an ancient transfer array. He once said that if he were to fly, it would take him hundreds of years with his spirit-severing cultivation level. As a result, this youth's speed was at an unimaginable level. Actually, the reason this youth got here so quickly had nothing to do with his soul transformation cultivation level. This was mainly due to his family's secret technique, the ghost search technique. The technique used many avatars to walk in all different directions, then fused back together and gave all of the distances walked by each avatar to the main body. This way, his speed would be increased thousands-fold and allowed him to arrive in just 2 months. This person's gaze was dark as he stared at the plants below him while slowly descending. All of the plants remained motionless, as if they were dead as he landed. Wufeng Valley was one of the demonic sects in Zhao. It was a great sect 400 years ago, but it had fallen in the past 400 years. Its nascent soul cultivators weren't able to break through. Their lifespans ended and none of them could escape the life and death cycle. This caused this once great sect to gradually decline, and along with how powerful the Xiandao sect became, Wufeng Valley dropped down to a second-grade sect. The decline of Wufeng Valley caused Teng Huiyuan's ambition to flare up. Throughout the years, he had been slowly sending more and more Teng family members into Wufeng Valley. The ancestors of Wufeng Valley knew of this, but because Teng Huiyuan was so powerful, they couldn't do anything. It has to be said that Teng Huiyuan was an elder of Wufeng Valley. This way, the other sects couldn't say anything as this would be considered an internal problem of Wufeng Valley. So far, there were a total of 93 Teng family members in Wufeng Valley, with a majority of them holding high positions in the sect. 3 of them had already reached very high positions. The most prominent of them was a 5th-generation family member, Tang Gao. He had already become a candidate for the next sect head. The other 2 nascent soul cultivators were completely helpless against Teng Huiyuan's actions. They could only pretend that nothing was wrong while always in closed-door cultivation to try to break through the early stage of nascent soul into the mid-stage of nascent soul and increase their lifespans. In addition, every year, the Teng family would gift them things like spirit herbs and pills. As a result, they were given even more reasons to turn a blind eye. It's not like they could win against Teng Huiyuan. It could be said that Wufeng Valley had become a personal sect of the Teng family. When this first started, there were people that were opposed to it. People of Wufeng Valley acted out and voiced their concerns, but after hundreds of years of it happening, there was no longer anyone that voiced their opposition, and even the disciples of Wufeng Valley believed they were part of the Teng family. After all, hundreds of years could change a lot, and most of Wufeng Valley's current disciples were a new generation that had been accepted in the past few hundred years. Wang Lin stood on top of the mosquito beast, and his divine sense was locked on the people in Wufeng Valley. Behind him was the long dragon banner with 7 bodies bound to it that had already been mummified under the strong wind. Wang Lin arrived outside Wufeng Valley with a monstrous killing intent. Although Wufeng Valley was called a valley, it still had a mountain. The mountain range was called 5 Peak Mountains. The mountain range was shaped like 5 fingers coming out of the ground. Wufeng Valley was located in this mountain range. The main sect was in the middle mountain while the other 4 mountains were for all the branches of the sect. Many years ago, when Wufeng Valley was at its peak, the 5 mountains were filled with spirit energy. There were thousands of cultivators and Wufeng Valley was the overlord of the area. But now, the mountain range was very deserted and spirit energy was scarce. There wasn't even 1,000 disciples in the sect anymore, and many of them were new disciples who were only at the first or second layer of qi condensation. Wang Lin arrived at the mountain riding the mosquito beast. It seemed someone had noticed his presence. Immediately, a cyan-colored light screen appeared to block Wang Lin. At the same time, a powerful killing intent came from the peak of each mountain. There were 5 men in white standing at the top of each peak with blue, red, purple, yellow, and white swords respectively floating above their heads. Boundless waves of spiritual energy came from the mountains and entered the 5. After a series of conversions, that energy entered the flying swords, making them more powerful. Wang Lin let out a sneer. These 5 are all members of the Teng family. Clearly, they were prepared. They must have been warned by that old man of the Teng family from the last sect, so they made preparations beforehand. This was inevitable, and Wang Lin didn't try to keep it a secret. With that old man's cultivation level, Wang Lin could have easily killed him before he could send out the warning. This was exactly what Wang Lin wanted. He wanted the entire country of Zhao to know that he was going to wipe out the Teng family. His revenge was not something to be done in secret. Instead, he would blaze the across country because right now he had the power to do so. The 5 Teng family members' hearts were very gloomy. They opened up the Grand Formation because they got the warning from Tang Gao that a powerful enemy was coming. Even though they had the Grand Formation up, the 5 didn't feel relaxed at all and instead felt rage in their hearts. They were enraged because they saw the 7 bodies bound to the dragon banner floating behind the youth in white. Wang Lin didn't pause. The moment the defense formation came up, he took out an ancient sword sheath. His eyes were filled with a ruthless light. Since Wufeng Valley was using sword qi to fight, then let them see what real sword qi is. Wang Lin took out a flying sword with his right hand. Currently, he had many low-quality magic treasures with him. After all, 400 years of accumulated wealth was no small amount. He quickly forced the sword into the sword sheath. When it was 4 to 5 tich of the way in, there was suddenly a powerful resistance. The 5 people on the peaks of the mountains let out shouts. The swords above their heads hummed and sword chi shot up into the air from the 5 swords. The color of the sky changed and the 5 sword chis moved like 5 dragons as they charged toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin held the sword sheath. He could feel that the killing intent mixed with the sword chi inside the sword sheath had reached its limit. He let go of the sword and suddenly, an aura more powerful than the 5 swords chis combined came out of the sword sheath. The sword aura flowed like a river. It made people want to go insane. After 1 hour, Wang Lin left the area with a head in his hand. This head belonged to the highest-ranking Teng family member in Wufeng Valley, Teng Gao. Teng Gao's eyes were filled with fear. However, because he was named Teng, he couldn't avoid it. Behind Wang Lin, the large dragon banner behind him already had 100 bodies bound to it. These bodies and heads spread out like a fan as Wang Lin flew. Anyone who saw this would be shocked. After the killing spree was over, 2 old men walked out of Wufeng Valley. These 2 were the nascent soul cultivators of Wufeng Valley. Not only were they not angry, but there was excitement burning in their eyes as one of them said, "The Teng family is finished." The other nodded and laughed. That's right. This person's cultivation level is really high. He must be from a demonic sect of a higher-ranked cultivation country. From the looks of his actions, he intends to wipe out the Teng family. I wonder if Pan Nanzi acted, would he be able to hold out? Even if he can't, it won't affect us. Junior apprentice brother, I feel that this person looks very familiar, but no matter how much I try, I just can't remember where I've seen him before. Really? Senior apprentice brother, I thought it was just me, but we must have met this person before. The 2 thought for a long time but still couldn't remember anything. They had already forgotten about the youth that had his body destroyed in a fight against Donghua outside Wufeng Valley all those years ago. Wang Lin stood on top of the mosquito beast. His eyes were still cold as he set his sights on a village 8,000 kilometers away. There were 174 Teng family members in that village. Teng Family City. Teng Huiyan sat in the main hall of the Teng family ancestral home. His face was gloomy and before him knelt 3 people. Besides the 3 people, there were dozens of others around the hall. All of them stood with their heads down. Silence and fear flashed across their eyes. In 4 days, this person has killed 961 people of the Teng family. Teng Huayuan let out a laugh as his eyes became even colder. He threw a piece of jade at one of the people that were kneeling on the ground and said, "Sun Heir, speak. Share the news that you have brought back." The youth kneeling on the ground was a young man whose face was as white and smooth as jade. He took the jade and placed it on his forehead. His expression didn't change as he slowly said, "4 days ago, this person appeared at the Tiandao sect. He killed 7 members of our Teng family and left. On the same day, he appeared at Wufeng Valley and used a sword sheath magic treasure to destroy the defense formation. He set up a 1,000-kilometer restriction zone and killed 93 members of our Teng family. 3 days ago, he appeared at a branch home of our Teng family. He killed all 174 Teng family members there. On the same day, this person showed up Tianjin City and wiped out the branch family that was established there 200 years ago. A total of 104 Teng family members were killed. 2 days ago, the Teng family members near the capital were wiped out. 211 people died in 1 hour. On the same day, the 27 Teng family members in the Yuan Kuei sect all died. Yesterday, the group we sent to the Jiemye sect to train was wiped out. All 345 Teng family members died. Their blood flowed like a river. As he spoke, the breathing of people in the room became more rough. Every one of those numbers represented the life of a Teng family member. Teng Huayuan tightened his fists. He took a deep breath and asked, "Did you find out the identity of this person?" The youth, who still had an indifferent face, shook his head and said, "I haven't managed to find out. Every person from the Teng family that has encountered him has died. Everyone else received orders from their sects to not say a word. Junior spent a lot of effort to get a picture. Ancestor, please look." With that, he slapped his bag of holding and took out a scroll. He slowly opened up the scroll for Donghua to see. On the scroll was a very simple sketch of a person. This person had flowing white hair and had a purple star on his forehead. His entire expression was filled with killing intent. Below him was a giant mosquito beast. The most notable feature of the beast was its long proboscis. In the middle of the proboscis hung chain that connected to something all the way behind them. The chain spread into many different branches. There were countless bodies attached to each branch. Although everyone only saw a picture, they all took deep breaths and revealed horrified expressions. Some of their faces were already so pale, there wasn't even a trace of blood left on them. After Donghua saw the picture, his eyes were glued onto the youth's face. After a long time, he revealed an expression of disbelief. He didn't hesitate as he grabbed the scroll with his hands. He stared at the picture as veins began to surface on his forehead. "So it is you." A strong aura suddenly spread from Donghua and turned the furniture around him into dust. There was even a Tang family member that wasn't able to get away fast enough, and was turned to dust after letting out a scream. As for the three people kneeling on the ground, they were the first ones to back away. Aside from the youth with the indifferent expression, the other two were terrified. Everyone in the hall knew that the ancestor was angry. After killing 900+ Tang family members, the ancestor didn't get angry and was only gloomy, but after seeing a picture of this person they didn't know why, but the ancestor lost control of his spiritual energy. Donghua stared at the youth in the picture. There was a trace of fear in his eyes. He was able to instantly recognize the person in the picture. It was that Wang Lin from back then, but he clearly remembered seeing Wang Lin die back then, which was why when he saw the picture, he was shocked and lost control of his spiritual energy. Donghua still remembered even to this day the terrifying eyes Wang Lin had when he died. That look had haunted him for these past 400 years. Donghua muttered, "He came back." At that moment, everyone in the hall wondered who exactly this person was. It was clear that the ancestor knew this person, or their hatred for each other wouldn't be so deep. But almost everyone here was born in the last 400 years, so they didn't know about what had happened 400 years ago. In fact, although many people knew about this matter, not many people talked about it. After all, a nascent soul cultivator wiping out a mortal family was not something to brag about. Donghua's face was ugly. Just as he was about to speak, a middle-aged man rushed into the hall. This person's face looked familiar to Donghua. Right as he entered the main hall, he kneeled down and revealed a shocked expression. With a voice filled with terror, he said, "Ancestor, we can't leave." Donghua frowned and shouted, "What are you panicking for? What are you saying? What do you mean we can't leave?" The middle-aged man swallowed, took a deep breath and quickly said, "A few days ago, there was a rumor from Tang family members about a light screen 10,000 kilometers from Tang family city preventing anyone from leaving. Junior didn't mind at first, but when I tried to leave for business, Junior found that it was indeed as the rumors said. I was unable to go more than 10,000 kilometers from Tang family city." The moment those words were said, the entire room became silent. Donghua looked at the middle-aged man and left the ancestral hall without a word. After leaving the hall, he instantly disappeared and reappeared 100 kilometers away, then flew away from Tang family city. After arriving at the 10,000 kilometer limit, Donghua didn't stop and charged forward. A screen of red light suddenly appeared as Donghua slammed into it. Waves of ripples spread out, but the light screen didn't break. No matter how far Donghua stretched it, it would always return to normal. Donghua's expression became even darker. Then he took out powerful magic treasures and used them one by one. To his horror, he found that the light screen remained intact. A trace of anxiety that hadn't appeared in a long time appeared in Donghua's heart. He almost immediately realized that Wang Lin had asked someone to put down this restriction. The goal was to trap everyone in Tang family city so they could only sit and watch as the rest of the Tang family members were killed. There was also another purpose for the light screen. All of the killing would scare the Tang family members to escape to Tang family city. Once everyone has gathered in Tang family city, Wang Lin will come attack. Donghua didn't believe that Wang Lin had the ability to lay down this restriction himself. Even if Wang Lin hadn't died that time, at most, his cultivation was only at the late stage of core formation or the early stage of nascent soul in the worst case. With Teng Huayuan's late-stage nascent soul cultivation, Wang Lin didn't seem significant to him at all. What he feared was the person who had set up this restriction. He guessed that that person's cultivation level might be spirit-severing. This was his real concern. After pondering for a while, he wondered how deep of a relationship that senior had with Wang Lin. If their relationship wasn't too deep, then this wasn't something the family couldn't withstand. Teng Huayuan didn't even think that there was any chance that this restriction had been placed by Wang Lin. He pondered a bit, then left with a gloomy expression. After he returned, he opened up all of the protective formations in Teng Family City with no regards to the cost. He then went into closed-door cultivation to keep his body at its peak so he'd be ready to battle at any time. To Wang Lin, the past 4 days of killing and the 1,000 people he had killed was only the start. Compared to the tens of thousands of Teng family members, this was only a small number. Wang Lin stood on the mosquito beast and behind him were almost 1,000 bodies. The 1,000 bodies covered a few hundred feet of area, and when he flew over an area, they cast a shadow on the land below. His eyes were still cold. It was as if they were ice that would never melt even in tens of thousands of years. His next destination was the He Huan sect. The He Huan sect had become the #1 demonic sect in Zhao. They had many exports and thousands of disciples. There were a total of 481 Teng family members in the He Huan sect. These people were not all He Huan sect disciples, but they were at the He Huan sect right now. A few days ago, Wang Lin killed over 300 Teng family members at the Jimie sect, and all of them were at the qi condensation stage. Wang Lin questioned the people there, and found that the elite of the Teng family had been sent out for training. It seemed the Teng family members in the He Huan sect were also there for training. Wang Lin let out a cruel smile as he slowly flew toward the He Huan sect. But just at that moment his expression changed as he looked to the east. There, in the distance, a colorful carriage floated toward his direction under the control of several youths. A voice came from the distance. "Immortal GMO is here. Random people, please move out of the way." The multicolored flower carriage was very eye-catching, especially when it caught the light of the sun, but what was even more ridiculous was that all of the flowers on the carriage were very rare spirit herbs in the country of Zhao. In addition to the flowers, there were many spots of light on the carriage. When the carriage moved, it was like the night sky filled with stars. In fact, it was so bright that the light would hurt your eyes if you looked at them. Even with Wang Lin's mental fortitude, he couldn't help but be dumbstruck for a moment. All of those shiny objects were low-quality spirit stones. It's not that the spirit stones were that precious or that there were that many. If Wang Lin were to lay out all of the spirit stones he possessed, he could decorate hundreds of those carriages. However, even with how long Wang Lin had lived and how much he had experienced, this was the first time he had met someone so lavish. The young boys and girls around the flower carriage were all very handsome and pretty. Although they were all only at the second or third stage of qi condensation, the arrogance on their faces was even greater than some low-key nascent soul cultivators. As the flower carriage got closer, Wang Lin's eyes became more calm as he observed the carriage. "Immortal GMO is here. Everybody make way." One of the youths shouted in a high-pitched voice as he stared at Wang Lin, completely disregarding all of the bodies floating behind Wang Lin. GMO. Wang Lin pondered a little. This name sounded very familiar to him. After carefully thinking, his eyes suddenly lit up as he said, "Old man GMO? You dare!" Almost all of the youths shouted at the same time. Their voices were in complete unison, as if they had practiced. Maybe because all of their voices were in sync, they were able to create a bit of pressure. However, to Wang Lin it was far too weak. "Shut up. All of you stand down." A sharp voice came from inside the carriage. Shortly after, the front part of the carriage slowly opened up, revealing a very gorgeous bed. On that bed lied a body that was like a mountain of fat. The person had an oily face and was so fat that he didn't even look human anymore. The person was wrapped in a blanket. The blanket was covered in mid-quality spirit stones. "You know this old man?" The fat man looked at the countless bodies behind Wang Lin and frowned. He asked, "Fellow cultivator, did these mortals mess with you for you to have killed them all?" In his eyes, Wang Lin was same as him, only at the early stage of nascent soul, so he didn't think of Wang Lin as a threat. GMO had rampaged around Zhao for a long time. After he reached the nascent soul stage, aside from the few late-stage nascent soul cultivators, he didn't think any other cultivators were a threat to him. This had a lot to do with the secret dark arts he practiced. This cultivation method was dedicated to making puppets, so even though his cultivation level was only early-stage nascent soul, he had a few puppets made from ancient cultivators' remains. In reality, GMO had been studying this for a long time. He had always been looking for things like zombies to refine. Wang Lin let out a cruel smile. He waved his right hand and grabbed a head from the dragon banner behind him. "Do you know this person?" he asked. Old man GMO was stunned. He originally thought that this person was just a cultivator that had killed a bunch of mortals. He looked at the face that was filled with fear and had a hard time identifying the person. After looking at it for a while, his eyes suddenly opened wide as he said, "Tung Gao." This Tung Gao was the Tung family member with the highest position in Wufeng Valley. He was going to be the next sect head. He also received a lot of attention from Donghua. Since Zhao was such a small country, GMO would naturally know such a person. Then he spread out his divine sense. This time he carefully looked at all the bodies. As he checked, his face became more and more ugly, and this gaggle of corpses suddenly had a totally different meaning. He almost sucked in a breath of cold air as he stared at Wang Lin and slowly asked, "These people are all Tung family members?" He suddenly became very cautious and no longer dared to look down on this person. Although the Tung family members that were killed weren't strong, if this person dared to kill this many Tung family members, then he was either stupid or arrogant enough to not fear Donghua. He immediately decided in his heart that this person was not someone he could mess with. Donghua had already reached the late stage of nascent soul, and the Tung family was filled with powerful cultivators. Yet this person didn't seem to care. Obviously, this person was looking down on the Tung family, and Old Man GMO didn't want to mess with a madman like this. Old Man GMO's face was instantly filled with smiles as he said, "Well done." This old man also sees the Tung family as an annoyance. "Fellow cultivator, good job killing. Keep on killing. This old man has something to do, so I'll take my leave." With that, he tried to maneuver the carriage to back up to get away from this fiend. Wang Lin's eyes became cold as he asked, "Do you know why I'm killing Tung family members?" Old man GMO's body shook. He had a feeling that something bad was going to happen and said, "I don't want to know. Fellow cultivator, goodbye." With that, he started to leave without any hesitation, even leaving behind the young boys and girls that were escorting him. Wang Lin didn't stop him, but slapped his bag of holding and took out the restriction flag. With a shake, the flag instant covered an area of 1,000 kilometers. Old man GMO's expression suddenly became very ugly. He stared at Wang Lin and barked, "What is this meaning of this? I didn't interfere with you or the Tung family. Your cultivation level is the same as mine. Don't think I'm afraid of you." Wang Lin calmly looked at Old Man GMO. He let out a sarcastic smile and said, "400 years ago, your youngest disciple suddenly died. Do you still remember?" The moment Old Man GMO heard this, he was immediately stunned, but soon recovered and stared at Wang Lin without a word. Wang Lin's voice was gentle as he slowly said, "That little disciple you had was killed by me, and he had a disciple called Zhang who was from the same sect as me." The fat on Old Man GMO's face twitched as he faked a smile and said, "You killed him? Oh well." This old man has already forgotten about what happened 400 years ago. Although he said that, his hand was already on his bag of holding. For streams of black smoke emerged next to him. In the gaps between the smoke, one could see the mummified puppets. Normally, when Old Man GMO fought, he didn't use this move at all. This showed just how much he dreaded Wang Lin. Each of these puppets had a cultivation level close to early-stage nascent soul, but Wang Lin didn't pay any attention to him and said, "After that, Zhang Hu and I were chased by Tung Lu. I believe you should remember what happened back then." Old Man GMO was unsettled. After a while he sighed and said, "Actually Just as he spoke, his eyes lit up and his fat body jumped off the carriage. While flying backwards, he shot out 4 drops of blood that landed on the 4 puppets. The 4 puppets suddenly opened their eyes, revealing their red eyes. They let out wild beast-like roars as they charged toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's expression was calm as his right hand formed a seal and he shouted, "Stop!" Suddenly, 8 restrictions suddenly appeared from the darkness, covering the area and surrounding the 4 puppets. Wang Lin leisurely flew toward Old Man GMO. Although Old Man GMO was fat, he was not slow. He quickly flew away and even teleported to escape, but no matter how hard he tried to escape, Wang Lin was always right behind him. GMO clenched his teeth and stopped moving. His hand formed a seal and his body shook. The fat on his body started to move strangely. It seemed to be slowly absorbed as his body became thinner. As the fat was absorbed by his body, his aura suddenly became stronger. His hair moved without any wind and the amount of spirit energy in him increased. His cultivation level suddenly went from early-stage nascent soul to mid-stage nascent soul. In the end, the person before Wang Lin was a very strong-looking middle-aged man. This person was very handsome. His brows were thick, his eyes were large, and he emitted a powerful aura. His cultivation level shot up to the peak of middle-stage nascent soul. Only one step from late-stage nascent soul. He stared at Wang Lin and said in a low voice, "You should feel honored. You are the first person to see my true form since I've reached the nascent soul stage. There are too few experts around, so I'm reluctant to kill you. If you had another 80 to 100 years, you might have had time to grow up. Let's do this. If you cut off one of your arms, I'll let you go for 100 years. I hope that in 100 years you will grow powerful enough to fight me. I can't wait." After GMO finished speaking, his face was filled with pride. His hands were behind his back and his head was pointed toward the sky. His figure revealed the look of someone who was unbeatable, but it also contained a hint of loneliness. After letting out a sigh, he glanced at Wang Lin, then slowly left. When he moved 100 meters away, he suddenly increased his speed and ran off without even looking back. Wang Lin revealed an odd expression. His eyes glowed red as the G-realm suddenly moved and a series of red lightning bolts shot from his eyes. Without any suspense, Gmo's eyes dimmed as he revealed a look of disbelief. Then his body fell from the sky. Then, under the attack of several restrictions, his body was torn apart. At the same time, his bag of holding floated into Wang Lin's hand. Wang Lin's body flashed and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was next to the 4 puppets. When GMO died, the 4 puppets stopped moving. Wang Lin looked at them a few times and thought for a while. He searched through GMO's bag of holding and started checking all of the jades inside. After a while, he found a piece of jade that contained the method for refining puppets. After reading the jade, Wang Lin's hand formed seals according to the instructions and shot them toward the puppets' foreheads. Suddenly, the puppets turned into smoke and entered the bag of holding. Wang Lin then put away the bag of holding, stepped back onto the mosquito beast, and quickly moved toward the He Huan sect. Inside the He Huan sect, the head ancestor, Old Man Yang, had a dark expression and was walking back and forth in the main hall with his hands behind his back. He couldn't make up his mind. Inside the main hall were 3 others, 2 female and 1 male. The male was very handsome and the 2 females were very beautiful. All 3 of them were nascent soul cultivators. They were also frowning and couldn't make a decision. One of the women was wearing a yellow robe that was very alluring. She softly said, "Senior apprentice brother, does that cultivator really have spirit-severing cultivation level?" Junior sister doesn't believe so. This woman's clothes were very close-fitting, revealing her curvy body that would make anyone's heart pound. If it wasn't for the frown on her face, she would be even more charming. Old Man Yang let out a soft humph and said, "Tiandao Sec's Yellow Mountain was an early-stage nascent soul cultivator and died from just one look from this person. Saying that this person is in the nascent soul stage would be underestimating him." The woman wearing yellow became silent and her brow tightened even more. The middle-aged man that had been silent suddenly said, "Senior apprentice brother, how about we kick all of the Tang family members out of the sect? If we do that, then that cultivator won't have a reason to come to our He Huan sect." Old Man Yang rubbed his temples and said, "Then wouldn't it mean that we are making an enemy out of the Tang family? Although both I and Donghua are at the late stage of nascent soul, I know I'm not his match if we fight." The hall was quiet. After a while, Old Man Yang's eyes lit up as he made a decision. His voice was gloomy as he slowly said, "That old thief Pun Nanzi still hasn't appeared, so there must be something wrong with all of this. Forget it. Donghua is known for holding grudges. If we hand over the Tang family members now and Tang Huayuan doesn't die, then our troubles will continue. Junior brother, send out the order to open up all of the defensive formations. I'll personally control them. We must drive that person away. The middle-aged man nodded. He hesitated and said, Senior brother, what if Donghua dies in the end? Old man Yang's eyes lit up and he chuckled. Don't underestimate Pan Nanzi. He will intervene for sure. Even if his cultivation level isn't high enough, would the person at Heaven's Tower still not be enough? The middle-aged man was stunned. He suddenly revealed a look of understanding and agreed. At that moment, inside the He-Huan sect, an exhausted middle-aged man walked out of a room coughing. He was holding a pile of clothes as he slowly walked out. Although he was only middle-aged, all of his hair was white and he wasn't walking straight. The sound of bell chimes echoed throughout the sect. 9 chimes meant that all He-Huan sect disciples must gather within 30 minutes or face punishment. When he first heard the bells, he didn't bother with it, but after hearing the 9th ring, he was shocked as he looked toward the main hall. He had been in the He-Huan sect for a long time and this was the first time he heard it ring 9 times. He hesitated for a while and ran toward the main hall with the clothes in his hands. However, he was simply too weak. He started to breath hard after a few steps. By the time he got to the main hall, all the other He-Huan sect members were sitting cross-legged at the square outside the main hall. The square was covered with countless disciples. Even the few courtyards nearby were filled with He-Huan sect disciples. Under each disciple was a faint ring of light. The middle-aged man quickly found a ring of light to sit down on. After taking a deep breath, he suddenly heard his fellows shouting. So he looked around and saw everyone looking upward. He looked up too and was stunned. In the sky above the He-Huan sect, an extremely ferocious beast appeared. The beast had a very notable proboscis that was holding a string that was tied to a banner with countless bodies bound onto it. At the top of the beast's head stood a person. The person had a head full of white hair. Although he looked ordinary, he emitted a very powerful killing intent. After the middle-aged man saw the person, he frowned. He felt like he had seen this person before but couldn't remember. Wang Lin looked at the He-Huan sect below him. He could feel that there was a defensive formation that was countless times stronger than the ones at Wufeng Valley and the Tiandao sect. This defense formation was very powerful. Unless his cultivation level had reached spirit severing, it would be very hard to break through it in a short period of time. The key to the formation was that as long as the He-Huan sect's disciples sat on the rings, they will automatically supply the formation with energy. The He-Huan sect had thousands of disciples, so breaking through the formation was like fighting thousands of people. The Tang family members were inside the main hall. It was clear that the He-Huan sect was going to fight until the end. Wang Lin's eyes calmly swept the ground. His gaze landed on an old man. He said to him, "If you don't open up this formation, a river of blood will flow here." That old man was Old Man Yang. After he saw Wang Lin, he frowned even harder and asked, "Fellow cultivator, what are you here for?" Wang Lin let out a sneer and red lightning appeared in his eyes. Although this formation was strong, if everyone maintaining the formation were to die, then it would break by itself. G-Realm shot out as a red lightning bolt and landed on the formation. The formation didn't even shake, but Old Man Yang was startled. Soon, more than 10 disciples on the ground let out miserable screams as they bled from every orifice and died. They fell to the ground and the rings of light below them suddenly lit up, then disappeared. Wang Lin's voice was cold as he slowly said, "Are you going to open the formation?" Old Man Yang laughed coldly in his heart and didn't speak. Wang Lin's G-Realm moved again. This time 10 red lightning bolts hit the formation. More than 100 disciples coughed out blood. Their bodies twitched a few times before they died. A sense of fear suddenly spread among the remaining disciples. Wang Lin calmly looked at Old Man Yang and asked, "Are you going to open the formation?" Old Man Yang's expression was sullen and he remained silent. He sat down and started feeding spiritual energy into the formation. The other 3 nascent soul cultivators clenched their jaws as they sat down too. Suddenly, more than 100 red lightning bolts appeared and slammed into the formation. Meanwhile, at the square, more than 1,000 disciples' bodies exploded into mists of blood. The remaining disciples no longer dared to stay. They all got off the rings of light and ran away. ignoring the shouts of their elders. Wang Lin's voice slowly came again. Are you going to open the formation? Old man Yang coughed out blood. His face was red and blue as he struggled to make a decision. The three other nascent soul cultivators' bodies were slanted. Clearly they were injured. Wang Lin took a deep breath and casually took out a jade bottle from his bag of holding. After he crushed the bottle, three nascent souls appeared. Within sight of everyone present, he devoured them one by one. Then, his eyes glowed red as he raised his right hand and a ball of red lightning gathered in it. This ball of lightning was made purely of G realm. After the ball had reached the size of a fist, it slowly floated downward. Old man Yang was filled with fear. This was the first time in his life he had seen someone consume nascent souls like pills. As he stared at the ball of red lightning floating down, he immediately shouted, "Fellow cultivator, please stop. I'll open it. I'll open it. I will no longer care about the Tang family." With that, he stood up, took out a piece of jade, and quickly sent his spiritual energy into it. The formation protecting the Huan sect disappeared right before the ball of red lightning landed. Old man Yang wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead. After he opened the formation, he also became more open-minded and said, "Senior, everyone from the Tang family is inside the main hall." Wang Lin didn't even look at him as he walked into the main hall. No sounds came from the main hall, but the smell of blood slowly leaked out. After half an hour, Wang Lin calmly walked out. He waved his hand and the dragon banner held by the mosquito beast flew into the main hall and carried out a few hundred bodies. The faces on these bodies were filled with fear and hate. All of these people were very young. If Wang Lin didn't exist, some of them would have surely become core formation cultivators, maybe even nascent soul cultivators. However, they shouldn't have been named Tang. It's better to say that Tang Li shouldn't have tried to kill Wang Lin. One step wrong and every step after it goes wrong as well. If Tang Li had known better, he wouldn't have tried to kill Wang Lin. Or if Tang Huayuan didn't kill Wang Lin's entire family, then Wang Lin wouldn't have come here to take revenge, because there would be no need for revenge. Wang Lin killed Tang Li and Tang Huayuan killed Wang Lin once, so their debt to each other had already been wiped clean. Wang Lin was not here to get revenge for himself, but for his family. Just as Wang Lin was prepared to leave, a soft call suddenly came from the main square. "Wang Lin." This call was very soft and filled with uncertainty. Wang Lin stopped and looked toward the owner of the voice. In the distance, he saw a middle-aged man in the corner. The weak middle-aged man looked at Wang Lin with a reminiscent look. Wang Lin felt like this person was very familiar. He took one step and arrived before the middle-aged man. He knelt down and asked, "What did you say just now?" The middle-aged man hesitated for a bit. He bitterly smiled and said, "Senior, Junior mistook you for someone else. Please don't blame me, Senior." Wang Lin carefully looked at the person and said, "Oh really? What did you mistake me for?" The middle-aged man bitterly smiled and exclaimed, "Senior, Junior once had a junior apprentice brother. I was the one who brought him to the sect." Wang Lin's heart shook. He finally remembered who this person was. He pondered for a moment, then waved his sleeves and disappeared from the Huan sect along with the middle-aged man. On a cliff hundreds of kilometers away, Wang Lin and the middle-aged man appeared. Wang Lin placed him down on the ground and carefully looked at the person. The middle-aged man looked around him. He revealed a complex expression and softly said, "You." Wang Lin softly sighed and said, "Senior apprentice brother Zhang, if you had recognized me, why not just say it?" The middle-aged man's body quivered. After pondering a bit, he bitterly smiled and said, Well." Wang Lin looked at the person before him and scenes of the past flashed by. After a while he asked in a wistful tone, "How is the Hengyu sect now?" The middle-aged man whispered, "I haven't gone back in many years." "Why is brother Zhang at the Huan sect? And your cultivation?" Wang Lin frowned. He grabbed the middle-aged man's arm. He pondered a little and continued, "The spiritual energy in your body is a complete mess and your meridians are very fragile." The middle-aged man bitterly smiled and said, "After you left and never returned, the ancestors put all their focus on me. They spent a lot of effort to raise my cultivation level to core formation. I then left the Hengyu sect with the idea to go out and experience struggles in hopes of reaching the nascent soul stage one day and re-establish the Hengyu sect. But I didn't expect to meet a girl. That girl was a XIAN sect disciple. Alas, my entire cultivation was lost. However, that B*TCH didn't kill me due to our past feelings and is using my body to refine a XIAN pill. Although I have become a complete waste, I'll still be alive until the pill is complete. I would have already become a bag of bones if it was. Wang Lin pondered a little. He slapped his bag of holding and took out a small white jade bottle. He passed it to the middle-aged man and said, "There are 7 pills inside this bottle. You must take 1 pill a month. After 7 months, you should be able to recover at least half of your cultivation. Senior apprentice Brother Zhang, I still have important things to do. I hope that after this goodbye, we will have another chance to meet." With that, Wang Lin looked at the middle-aged man deeply. Then his body moved and disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he was in the air, standing on top of the mosquito beast as it carried the bodies behind it. The middle-aged man looked with envy at where Wang Lin disappeared from with a hint of melancholy. Truth was, he realized that it was Wang Lin when he called out Wang Lin's name. But Wang Lin's change was simply too great. He knew it was Wang Lin in his heart, but he still found it hard to believe. Holding the jade bottle in his hand, he took a deep breath and slowly walked away. While Wang Lin was flying, he spread out his divine sense. He noticed that all of the Tang family members in Zhao had moved using various methods just as he predicted. Their destination was Tang Family City. Wang Lin revealed a cruel look in his eyes. He thought, "All of you move as you wish. When everyone has moved into Tang Family City, that is the day I will pay a visit to Donghua." The widespread migration continued throughout Zhao. However, there were 7 people that still hadn't moved. In these past few days of killing, Wang Lin had found out through various methods that the Tang family had 9 core family members. Besides Tang Huayuan, very few people knew what cultivation level these people were at. It could be said that they were the people Tang Huayuan was training to take over the Tang family. In order to help those 9 people's cultivation, Tang Huayuan spent a lot of effort and resources to open up 9 spirit caves. The 9 of them spent most of their time cultivating inside. All of the pills, magic treasures, and techniques needed were supplied by the family. The 9 people's only job was to cultivate. Every once in a while, Tang Huayuan would take the 9 of them to the dangerous areas in the neighboring countries to train. It could be said that whether it was their cultivation or combat experience, both had reached their peaks. These 9 could be said to have been created from all of the resources of the Tang family. In addition to all that, it wasn't like the 9 never changed. Every 50 years, the Tang family members had a chance to challenge any of these 9 people. If they win, they immediately take their spot and gain access to all of the benefits of being one of those 9 and gain the full support of the Tang family. As a result, among the 9 core Tang family members, besides one, every other position had exchanged owners at least 3 times. Under all these challenges, it was clear how high the core Tang family members' cultivation levels were. The 7 unmoving points of light detected by Wang Lin were all core Tang family members. The other 2 were called back to Tang Family City. Wang Lin revealed a vicious light in his eyes. Right now, every other Tang family member was moving toward Tang Family City just as he had planned. Right now, his targets were those 7 core family members that the Tang family spent countless years to cultivate. These 7 must die. A powerful killing intent leaked from Wang Lin as he locked onto his target and slowly flew toward a sand dome in the distance. Tang 9 was a name, and at the same time it was an honorable title. This name had changed owners many times. To be exact, it was 6 times. Tang 9 sat inside a hidden room. The room looked very humble, but Tang 9 knew that this hidden room would make any Tang family member crazed with envy. He once was one of those envious Tang family members after all. He was a genius ever since he was a child, and he had always dreamed of becoming a core family member. Only by becoming a core family member would he receive the support of the family, the notice of the ancestors, and have a chance of reaching the nascent soul stage. Growing up in the Tang family, he had seen all of the cold and snobbish attitudes of the Tang family. Everything he had experienced as a child had turned his heart cold and made him willing to do anything to gain power. This was to the point that when he heard that he could compete for one of the 9 core family member positions, the first person he killed was his older brother, because his older brother was someone competing against him. In the entire Tang family, the challenge ceremony against the 9 core family members only happened once every 50 years, and every time only 9 people would be chosen to challenge the core family members. Through various methods, he step by step became one of the 9 core family members. This position was obtained through blood and sweat, and with him giving up his dignity and humanity. In order to successfully win the challenge, he practiced the most vicious art in the Tang family. This art let him consume other people's spiritual energy to increase his own cultivation level. Although this would greatly reduce his lifespan, it allowed him to increase his cultivation level very rapidly. After all, his opponent was the previous owner of the Tang 9 name, whose cultivation level had already reached late-stage core formation. Tang 9 looked at the hidden chamber with a satisfied look. This chamber had 10x more spiritual energy than outside. Although this chamber looked simple upon closer inspection, it was made entirely out of high-quality spirit stone. Below this chamber was a spirit vein. Although this spirit vein wasn't large, to be used for just one person to cultivate was an unimaginable luxury. Pills? Tang 9 wasn't short on any pills. If he asked for a pill, the Tang family would use whatever method needed to get it for him. Technique? Tang 9 had many. Any technique he wanted, the Tang family would get it for him. Magic treasures? Tang 9 had many, and every one of them was a nascent soul-level magic treasure. Women? He was not short on any. As long as he asked, the Tang family would bring him a woman of at least a certain cultivation level for him to use. Tang 9 didn't have to worry about anything. This was the benefit of being one of the 9 core family members. His only job was to cultivate, and cultivate. Wang Lin's body floated in the air. With his divine sense, he could clearly see a hidden chamber under the sand domes. Inside the hidden chamber was his prey. This person was the first nascent soul Tang family member he had met besides Donghua, and this person also had a strong murderous aura around him. This murderous aura was impossible to obtain without killing a lot of people. Although it was several levels below Wang Lin's killing intent, it was still a bit stronger than even some of the demonic cultivators in the Sea of Devils. Wang Lin faintly smiled. This Tang family member made his eyes light up. It has to be said that the requirement to become a devil is to have a ferocious nature. The more ferocious the person is, the more powerful they will be as a devil. Wang Lin formed a seal with his right hand and pressed into the ground. On the sand dune, the imprint of a hand appeared and slowly pressed into the ground. Inside the hidden chamber, Tang 9 suddenly opened his eyes and without any hesitation, he disappeared from the hidden chamber. The moment he disappeared, the hidden chamber collapsed and formed a whirlpool of sand. When Tang 9 reappeared, he was already floating in the air, emitting a murderous aura. He looked at the hidden chamber, then at Wang Lin as his murderous aura reached its limit. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he stared at the youth that emitted a powerful murderous aura. If this youth was turned into a devil, it would be his most powerful devil. The youth didn't act rashly, but looked at the countless bodies behind Wang Lin. Then without a word he turned and ran. He was very fast and disappeared without a trace. Wang Lin let out a faint smile and quickly chased after him. Tang 9 ran for 1,000 kilometers in one go, but that sense of danger was still there. This sense of danger made his skin crawl. This feeling became stronger and stronger until Tang 9's eyes finally lit up and he slapped his bag of holding. He took out a gray bead and threw it behind him. The moment Wang Lin saw Tang 9 slap his bag of holding, he took out the restriction flag. 10 restrictions immediately appeared and formed a wall, protecting Wang Lin. Then, the bead landed on the wall of restrictions and exploded. Tang 9 didn't reveal a happy smile at the result, and instead that sense of danger became even stronger. Just as he was running away, he suddenly felt every hair on his body stand up. He dodged to the side without any hesitation and saw a flash of red lightning that almost touched his body go by. Tang 9's eyes were filled with fear because he felt imminent death from that red lightning. He believed that if he hadn't just dodged that red lightning at that moment, he would have died. But before he could rejoice, hundreds of streaks of red lightning suddenly appeared all around him, completely blocking his escape. Tang 9's body stiffened and he didn't dare to keep flying. He slowly turned to Wang Lin and said, "Senior, Junior is willing to serve under you and never betray you. I'm willing to give you my soul blood to show my loyalty." Wang Lin stared at Teng Nine and slowly shook his head. He didn't say anything, but used his divine sense to make the cage of red lightning around Teng Nine slowly shrink. Teng Nine's forehead was filled with sweat as he took out countless magic treasures and sent them out, but no matter how many he threw, none of them could break through the red lightning. The divine sense on every magic treasure would break the moment they touched the red lightning. Every time the divine sense on a magic treasure shattered, he would feel pain in his head. Gradually, the fear on his face became even stronger. You have to die because your name is Teng. Wang Lin's voice slowly floated over as a faint killing intent spread out from him. Teng Nine's body shook. His eyes turned red and let out a roar as he charged towards the red lightning. The moment his body touched the red lightning, he didn't immediately die, but his figure looked very weak. How could Wang Lin be willing to kill such a good candidate for turning into a devil? He let out a smile as he thought about how good it will feel when he turns the Teng family members into devils. As the red lightning rapidly closed in, Teng Nine's mind collapsed as he felt the sense of hopelessness. This feeling became even more powerful, and as the feeling reached its peak, just as Teng Nine was about to destroy his own soul, Wang Lin moved. He jumped off the mosquito beast and went through the red lightning. His hand reached toward Teng Nine's throat and viciously squeezed. With a cracking sound, Teng Nine's eyes almost popped out as he was filled with despair and died. Just as he died, Wang Lin's left hand formed a strange seal and placed it on Teng Nine's forehead. I take your soul in the name of a soul devourer. A ray of red light came from Teng Nine's forehead. It tried to escape, but was quickly caught by Wang Lin and thrown into the soul flag. Wang Lin casually threw Teng Nine's body backwards and looked at the soul flag with satisfaction. It has to be said that Wang Lin dreamed of having an army of devils like he did in the foreign battleground. With that army, he would have the power to start his own sect and would not fear even people with higher cultivation levels than him. It was just that souls that could be turned into devils were simply too rare. In these 400 years besides Teng Nine, he had only found 3. Su Ligua was man-made, so he had a lot of defects. If it wasn't for the fact Su Ligua had gained intelligence, which made him different from the other devils, Wang Lin would have already killed him to feed to the other devils. Wang Lin was very happy with the second devil early on because it was fierce and powerful. But as his cultivation got stronger, the second devil just couldn't keep up and wasn't strong enough anymore. The third devil was made from the spirit ape. While it was powerful, it was not fierce enough. These 3 devils were very different from Wang Lin's vision of a devil that he got from the foreign battleground. None of the 3 matched the power and ferocity of the wandering souls from the foreign battleground, so none of them were satisfactory products in Wang Lin's view. However, now it was different. If the soul inside the soul flag becomes a devil, then its power and ferocity will not be a problem. Even if it isn't as good as the wild wandering souls of the foreign battleground, the difference won't be too big. If the other Teng family members' natures are all like this, then I will have to thank Teng Huayuan for training such perfect devil candidates for me. Wang Lin muttered to himself as his eyes lit up and he flew toward his next destination. With his divine sense, he could feel that besides one person, who was at the border of Zhao, they had all moved. They clearly wanted to return to Teng Family City. If it was before he saw Teng Nine, Wang Lin would have let them all return to Teng Family City and would have killed them all there. But after experiencing Teng Nine, how could he let other perfect candidates like Teng Nine get away? Although the mosquito beast was fast, it was not fast enough for Wang Lin. He took out a pill and ate it as he jumped off the mosquito beast and charged toward the next target. Teng 8 was casually flying in the air. His eyes were calm and he didn't feel tense at all. In fact, he didn't want to return to Teng Family City. But the murders in the past few days had caused the entire Teng family to panic. More importantly, the Teng family ancestor was indifferent about this matter, and hadn't left Teng Family City at all. Thus this whole thing became even more strange. This was the reason Teng 8 was going back to Teng Family City, to check on the situation. As he flew, he had his divine sense spread out so he could react to even a blade of grass moving. But Teng 8 didn't believe that the person that had been killing the Teng family members would dare to come mess with him. After all, the strongest Teng family members that had been killed were only at the core formation stage. Teng 8 believed that he could have killed all of them as well. After all, he was at the mid-stage of nascent soul. With his cultivation level, he could casually go anywhere in Zhao. Although he wasn't a match for those late-stage nascent soul old monsters, he didn't fear them. In the entire country of Zhao, he only feared 2 people. Of the 2, the first person wasn't Teng Huayuan but Teng Wan. Teng Huayuan was only second. In fact, every time he thought of Teng Wan, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his body. Aside from those 2, he wasn't afraid of anyone else. In fact, he hoped that that mysterious person would appear before him. He was the 5th person to hold the name Teng 8. That means that for a long time, everyone that challenged him was killed by him. While he was flying, Teng 8's eyes became more serious as it became dark and dark clouds gathered. Just as he was about to move faster, he was startled as a young man dressed in white appeared before him without a second's notice. Teng 8's heart shook. It has to be said that his divine sense was spread out the whole time. Yet he didn't notice this young man at all. This could only mean that this young man's divine sense was far above his own. But a powerful divine sense didn't mean one's cultivation or technique was powerful. So without any hesitation, Teng 8 slapped his bag of holding and flying swords flew out. More and more flying swords flew out as if his bag of holding was endless. As the flying swords flew out one by one, the youth didn't do anything. The youth's eyes made Teng 8 feel extreme disgust. Wang Lin stared at Teng 8 and his eyes lit up. This person's murderous aura was even stronger than the last one's. However, this person had learned to hide it, so it was not showing as much. Wang Lin's mouth moved and revealed a satisfactory smile as he slowly walked forward. Teng 8 let out a snort as he moved his hand. A cold light flashed across his eyes as he formed a seal with his right hand. He pointed at Wang Lin. The swords let out a hum and flew toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin revealed a sarcastic smile as the flying swords flew toward him. His body shook as his soul devourer soul left his body and formed a black fog. All of the flying swords that touched his soul immediately lost the divine sense in them and fell to the ground. Teng 8 revealed a horrified expression and was about to back away, but he was too late. Wang Lin had already charged toward him in his soul devourer form, and the black fog quickly invaded Teng 8's body. Teng 8 let out a terrible scream. The scream was so terrible that it would turn someone's face pale. As he screamed, his body involuntarily thrusted in all directions and black veins popped on his forehead. They were black because Wang Lin's soul devourer soul was flowing through them along with the blood. It didn't last long, but Teng 8's painful scream continued. His voice was already hoarse and he was covered in cold sweat. After a while, his body suddenly shook violently and he fell to the ground. As his body fell, Wang Lin's soul devourer soul took Teng 8's nascent soul and returned to Wang Lin's body. Teng 8's soul was placed in the soul flag, and his body was bound by the dragon banner. From the time Wang Lin appeared until now, it wasn't long. Most of the time consisted of Teng 8 screaming. After Wang Lin's soul returned to his body, he didn't hesitate and charged toward the next target. Teng 6 was not young. 200 years ago, he was already a core Teng family member, but had lost his title to a challenger. Luckily, he didn't die and went into years of closed-door cultivation. After he came out, he went to where the then Teng 6 was cultivating and killed the challenger that beat him before. This was all done without the permission of Teng Huayuan. Afterward, although he received punishment from Teng Huayuan, he held on to the name of Teng 6. Although his cultivation level was only nascent soul, his cultivation method allowed him to transform murderous aura. It was because of this ability that Teng Huayuan allowed him to keep the position of Teng 6. But today the line of Teng 6s will end. From today onward, there will never be another Teng 6. Teng 6 licked his lips as he quickly flew through the air. His reason for leaving was the complete opposite of Teng 8's. He left his hidden chamber because he felt a sense of danger. Since he transformed all of the murderous aura in his body, he gained a new ability. This ability has saved his life many times. He believed in this sense of danger he was feeling, so he quickly flew toward Teng Family City. He didn't believe that his journey would be a peaceful one, even though Teng Family City was only 5 days of travel time away, because during the trip, the sense of danger became even stronger. Wang Lin's divine soul was already locked onto the person ahead of him. This person's cultivation level was mid-stage nascent soul. He licked his lips as he flew closer to that person. As Teng 6 was flying, he felt a killing intent covering him. He secretly complained. If he hadn't felt that sense of danger, he would go and fight this person. But now he clenched his teeth and both of his feet suddenly exploded. Thanks to the explosion, the blood formed a mist and covered his body. Enduring the intense pain, his speed suddenly increased by several times. His body formed a bloody meteor and disappeared. Wang Lin frowned. This person was very decisive and had used a forbidden technique. At the cost of burning part of his soul, he was able to increase his speed by several times, making it impossible for Wang Lin to catch up. Wang Lin stood in place and looked at the direction Ting 6 escaped toward. He pondered for a while, then took out his restriction flag to cover the area within a 1,000-kilometer radius. Shortly after, Wang Lin pointed at his brow and the devil Su Ligua and the third devil appeared. Wang Lin ordered them to protect him as he took out the bronze mirror. The bronze mirror floated above Wang Lin's head and slowly wobbled. After doing all that, Wang Lin took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Soon black fog started coming out of Wang Lin's head. The black fog grew until it was like a black cloud. Suddenly, the black cloud moved and quickly spread out and covered the entire country of Zhao. This black cloud was Wang Lin's soul devourer soul. This time, his soul devourer soul completely left his body. Tung 5 was a very handsome middle-aged man. It could be said he looked very much like Tung Li from back then. Beside him were two very beautiful female cultivators. All three of them were quickly flying toward Tung Family City. Seeing that they were about to be within 10,000 kilometers of Tung Family City, Tung 5 let out a sigh of relief. But just at that moment, the sky suddenly darkened and black clouds covered the sky. As Tung 5 stared dumbfoundedly, the black cloud quickly descended and surrounded him. Then the black cloud left with Tung 5's soul and nascent soul. A shout of anger came from Tung Family City as Tung Huayuan rushed out of the city like lightning. Just now he felt Tung 5's presence. Then Tung 5's presence was suddenly gone. At that moment he also felt a presence powerful enough to cause his heart to pound. Just as Tung Huayuan arrived, the black cloud in the sky moved and formed a face, Wang Lin's face. He coldly looked at Tung Huayuan. He let out a cruel smile and disappeared. Tung 4's cultivation level was not high. He was only in the early stage of nascent soul. After all, he had only received the position of core family member 20 years ago. Currently, he was standing on a flying sword as he quickly flew. He felt very grief-stricken because of the family members that had died. One of them was his own younger brother. This was the reason he left the hidden chamber. He didn't leave to go back to Tung Family City, but to get revenge for his younger brother. Unfortunately, this was a quest for vengeance he could never complete, because the current him didn't even notice the cloud above him become more dense. In one day of time, out of the 7 core Tung family members outside, 5 had already died. One of them was still not moving from their hidden chamber, and the other was quickly moving. But this person wasn't by himself. Beside him there was a male and a female. If Wang Lin saw those two, he would have immediately recognized them because one of them was Wang Zhua. Wang Zhua no longer had the normal dark expression on his face, but instead showed a sense of relief because currently someone was wiping out the Tung family. Although he didn't know who was doing this, that didn't affect his mood. He hoped that that person would continue to kill until all of the Tung family was wiped out. He looked at his wife and felt very complicated. He originally didn't have any feelings for this woman, but due to the pressure from Tung Huayuan and to protect himself, he married her. But a person isn't made of wood. Although he hated the Tung family, his feelings toward his wife were very complicated. Tung 3 didn't look young. His hair was already white and he looked to be about 40 or 50 years old. If one looked closely, they could see that Wang Zhua's wife looked like him. He was very handsome. On his flawless face was a pair of eyes that shone like black gems. Tung 3 softly said, "Xiao Xiao, right now the Tung family is facing a powerful enemy and the ancestor won't come out. This whole thing is too strange. Once you have safely reached Tung Family City, stay there with your younger sister and don't come out." Tung Xiao Xiao was Tung 3's daughter. The reason Tung 3 left the hidden chamber was to guard his daughter on her way to Tung Family City. Tung Xiao Xiao nodded. Tung 3 hesitated for a bit and said, If I can't escape death this time, then forget about going to Tung Family City to find your little sister. Leave the country of Zhao immediately. Go as far away as you can." Wang Zhuo listened to all of this silently on the side. Although his expression was calm, he was coldly laughing in his heart. Teng Three's eyes seemed to be able to see through one's heart as he looked at Wang Zhuo. His expression didn't change, so no one knew if he was happy or angry. Waves of emotion surged in his heart as he rubbed Teng Xiuxiu's hair. He knew that ever since he was forced by the ancestor to separate from his wife all those years ago, he will forever live under the shadow of the ancestor. All of this was because his wife was immortal, and because he was the great-great-grandson of the ancestor. An important Teng family member couldn't take a mortal as his wife, because his descendants must have the qualifications to cultivate. If he wanted to change things, then he must have power. He must reach a cultivation level that surpasses the ancestor. Many years later, he succeeded in his cultivation and was able to push his 2 daughters onto the path of cultivation, but his wife's lifespan was already up. The pain in his heart had never diminished in all these years. In these years, he focused purely on cultivation. Only by cultivating could he suppress the thoughts of his wife. To a certain extent, Teng Xiuxiu, who looked the most like Teng Three's wife, not only was his daughter, but also received all of the love he had for his wife. That was why he wouldn't let Teng Xiuxiu receive any kind of harm or let anyone cause her any grievance. He coldly looked at Wang Zhuo and said, "Wang Zhuo, because of Teng Xiuxiu, I'll let you live. Now scram. From now on, Teng Xiuxiu has no relation with you." Wang Zhuo's eyes lit up. He looked at Teng Three and said, "What a temper." With that, he jumped back and was about to leave. After Teng Xiuxiu heard this, she quickly moved forward and grabbed Wang Zhuo's arm. She turned around, looked at her father with watery eyes, and bit her lower lips without a word. Teng Three's eyes were still cold, but he slowly let out a sigh and turned around. Teng Xiuxiu's expression right now was just like his wife's. He didn't want to kill Wang Zhuo because he didn't want to cause Teng Xiuxiu any pain. "Wang Zhuo, even though the Teng family killed your family, I hope you won't do anything to harm Xiuxiu. You two are a cultivation couple after all. Although your parents can't be with you, your wife will be with you for the rest of your life. Wang Zhuo, know what's best." Wang Zhuo pondered for a while. He looked at Teng Xiuxiu with a complex look. If that day were to ever come, even he didn't know what he would do. Teng Xiuxiu looked at the 2 men that were the most important people in her life and said, "Father, Wang Zhuo won't, he won't." At the end, her voice was filled with determination. This woman, even until the end, believed that Wang Zhuo wouldn't hurt her. Although Teng Three's expression was the same, his urge to kill increased greatly. If it was when the Teng family was stable, whether Wang Zhuo lived or died wouldn't matter, as he was confident that Wang Zhuo wouldn't act rashly. But right now, the Teng family was in danger, so it was very different. Teng Three made up his mind. Once they return to Teng Family City, he will find a chance to kill Wang Zhuo, because he still had a feeling that if Wang Zhuo didn't die, Teng Xiuxiu will still be in danger. However, he won't have this opportunity. A dark cloud suddenly covered the sky. The dark cloud felt like it could fall down at any time. Teng Three's gaze suddenly became serious. Without any hesitation, he pointed at his abdomen and coughed out some of his essence blood. At the same time, a point of light flew out of his bag of holding and fused into the essence blood, forming an oval-shaped light before him. Teng Three reached out with his hand and grabbed. Teng Xiuxiu shouted in surprise as Teng Three threw her into the oval ring of light. Teng Xiuxiu looked at her father with a look of despair and shouted, "Father!" When her voice reached him, Teng Three felt that he couldn't be cruel, so he reached out again. This time he grabbed Wang Zhuo and viciously threw him toward the oval light. The two disappeared into the oval light. All of this happened very quickly. The moment the black cloud appeared, Teng Three didn't mind lowering his own cultivation, and used a massive amount of essence blood to transport Teng Xiuxiu and Wang Zhuo away. After doing all that, he no longer had any regrets. He straightened his body and without a sound, an orange-colored flying sword appeared next to him. This flying sword was built by himself. It was named Dao Yun, because his wife's name contained the word Yun. Every day, he cleansed the sword with his own spiritual energy. He didn't let anyone touch this sword, not even Donghua. He also never used this sword when he fought with others. The degree of adoration he had for this sword wasn't any lower than what he had for Teng Xiuxiu, because when this sword was made, his wife left a drop of her blood in it. It was because of this drop of mortal blood that this sword's power weakened drastically. But Teng 3 didn't care, because as long as this sword was here, his wife was present. If the sword was broken, his wife was dead. At that moment, Teng 3's heart was filled with the urge to battle, because he knew that he would die today. If he was allowed to choose the way he would die, he would hope to die along with this sword. He gently touched the flying sword. This was the last time he would cleanse the sword with his spiritual energy. He revealed a determined look, and without a word, his sword let out a hum and flew toward the cloud in the sky. Teng 3 quickly jumped up and followed behind the flying sword. He used all of the spiritual energy in his body and moved like a shooting star with the flying sword toward the black cloud. In the midst of his shooting star-like movement, he could see his wife smiling at him and calling him. The shooting star flew across the sky, through the black cloud, and landed 100 kilometers away. All of the black clouds gathered together and formed a shape that looked like Wang Lin. He looked thoughtfully in the direction the shooting star went toward. The middle-aged man charged toward Wang Lin without any fear in his eyes and died to Wang Lin's Ji realm. It was just that at the moment of his death, Wang Lin felt the feeling of mourning from Teng 3. Wang Lin pondered for a long time, but he didn't take out his soul even though this person would have made an excellent devil. He didn't think that there would be someone who cared about his loved one so much in the Teng family. However, he still had to die. He shouldn't have been born into the Teng family. 100 kilometers away, Teng 3 landed. There were no injuries on his body at all, but he was dead. In his hand, the sword named Dao Yun shone for the last time and shattered. Teng family city. Teng Huayuan was at the top floor of the Teng family ancestral home, as he stared at 9 pieces of jade. 5 of them were already broken, and just as Teng Huayuan sighed, the jade representing Teng 3 split in half. Teng Huayuan's body shook. His face suddenly started to look a lot older. He slowly touched all of the broken jades, and when his hand moved over the jade for Teng 3, his old eyes released tears that had never been released in the past 400 years. Teng Huayuan whispered, "Hai Air." Teng Hai was Teng 3's real name. When someone became a core Teng family member, they would leave a trace of their soul in a special jade. In just 2 days' time, many of those jades shattered, and each time, Teng Huayuan would feel pain in his heart. Especially Teng 5. He basically saw Teng 5 die before him. Even though they were only 100 feet apart, it felt like they were divided by a chasm that not even Teng Huayuan could traverse. Teng 5, besides Teng 1, was the one that looked the most like Teng Li, so he received a lot of care from Teng Huayuan. Teng 9's bitter childhood caused his twisted personality, so he took the extreme path of stealing lives, but shortening his own. Teng Huayuan had prepared several top-quality pills for him, but all those pills were now useless. Teng 8, Teng 6, and Teng 4 all held positions in Teng Huayuan's heart. However, Teng 3 was still the most important. Teng Huayuan had always considered Teng 3 to be the disgrace of the Teng family. Born a core disciple, instead of properly cultivating, he went and became obsessed with a mortal woman. Teng Huayuan forcibly split them apart and allowed the ruthless flow of time to kill that woman. Teng Huayuan knew that Teng 3 hated him. However, this didn't affect how much Teng Huayuan cared for Teng 3. In fact, he felt regretful about splitting the two apart back then. But now, he would never have the chance to tell Teng 3 about his regret, because Teng 3 was already dead. He looked at the broken transfer array. The transfer array was heavily damaged and couldn't be repaired anymore. This could be considered a wasted transfer array. The youth secretly sighed and muttered to himself, "There aren't many people in this planet that can open my bag of holding. It's just that with my current unstable cultivation, if I don't return to my home planet soon, my cultivation will drop even more." He slightly frowned and disappeared. The Kong continent, one of the 6 main continents of planet Suzaku. There were countless cultivation countries in the Kong continent, but most of them were rank 1 or 2 counties with some rank 3 and very few rank 4. After all, the resources on this continent were too poor. At the border of the Kong continent and the Sea of Devils there was a small border town. This town was not very large. The strongest person was only at the core formation stage. In this town there was an ancient transfer array. This transfer array suddenly lit up and soon, Wang Lin's figure walked out of it. After he appeared, He immediately spread out his divine sense and checked out the whole town. The moment he spread out his divine sense, everyone in the town felt a chill run down their spine, but this feeling left as quickly as it came. Wang Lin withdrew his divine sense, then disappeared from the spot. He moved according to the map in his mind. Once he was thousands of kilometers away from the town, he slapped his bag of holding and the mosquito beast appeared before him. Wang Lin jumped onto its back. He sent out a message to the mosquito beast. It let out a roar and charged forward. He moved very quickly. Before long, Wang Lin sensed many locations filled with strong cultivators. Clearly, those locations were where the local sects were. Wang Lin didn't stop, he quickly made his way through this country. After 10 days, he had passed countless rank 1 and 2 cultivation countries and arrived at his destination, the second transfer array. Through this transfer array, he could quickly close the distance between him and Zhao. However, when he was 1,000 kilometers away from the transfer array, he slowly started to frown. According to the map, the transfer array was in a mountain, but Wang Lin could clearly feel that countless buildings had been built in the area. The area was also filled with spiritual energy. It was clearly a cultivation ground now. During his scan with his divine sense, he saw some very determined youths outside of a main hall with a few Qi condensation disciples. It was clear that they were holding an entrance ceremony. At the same time, on the roads of the mountain, there were some youths painstakingly walking up the mountain. Looking at the familiar scene before him, Wang Lin felt some regret in his heart. He didn't know what the Hengyu sect was like nowadays. Although his feelings for the Hengyu sect weren't deep, it was still the sect that brought him into the cultivation world. Wang Lin rode the mosquito beast toward the sect with complex feelings in his heart. When he was about 100 kilometers away from the sect, a short white light appeared, preventing him from entering the sect. Without him having to do anything, the mosquito beast let out a roar and pierced into the light with his sharp proboscis. Then, the beast inhaled and the pillar of light cracked and finally crumbled. As a result, the expressions of the few core formation cultivators who were in closed-door training suddenly changed as they quickly came out. They stared dumbfounded at Wang Lin and the mosquito beast under him. They quickly shouted at the disciples to stop the recruiting ceremony, and quickly went to wait for Wang Lin's arrival in front of the main hall. The instant Wang Lin arrived, the 3 core formation cultivators quickly went up and respectfully said, "We greet Senior." The 3 of them were horrified. Although Wang Lin wasn't emitting any spiritual energy, they felt a pressure from him that caused their hearts to tremble. Especially the beast under Wang Lin's feet. It made them afraid that it would make a big disaster to fall upon them. Among the 3 core formation cultivators were 2 males and 1 female. Aside from one of the males who had white hair, the other 2 looked very young, especially the female cultivator. She looked very beautiful and graceful. However, you can't judge a cultivator by their appearance. Just look at Wang Lin. Although he looked like a youth, he was already more than 400 years old. Wang Lin's expression was calm as he scanned the 3 and asked, "What sect is this?" The old man among the 3 quickly and respectfully answered, "Senior, our sect is called XIAN. If Senior needs anything, we will do our best to help." Wang Lin looked at the person and calmly said, "There used to be an ancient transfer array here. Does it still exist?" The old man was stunned. He pondered a little and said, "Senior, there are no ancient transfer arrays here." The moment he finished speaking, he felt a chill run down his spine. Wang Lin's whole aura suddenly turned cold as he slowly said, "Are you sure?" The old man's forehead was covered in cold sweat. After thinking for a bit, he was about to speak, but the graceful female cultivator cut him off and said in a crisp voice, "Senior, was the location of the ancient transfer array on top of a mountain?" Wang Lin's gaze fell on the female cultivator. Although her looks couldn't compare to Li Muan's, she was still fairly pretty, especially her face, which was as white as jade. Facing Wang Lin's gaze, the female's face slightly glowed red. She quickly said, "Senior, if that transfer array is on top of the mountain, then Junior knows of it. Lead the way." Wang Lin flew toward the top of the mountain. The woman quickly followed. The other 2 core formation cultivators hesitated for a bit, then followed as well. Under the guidance of the woman, they soon arrived at the top of the mountain. There was a large loft built here with bells hanging on the corners of the building. The bells rang very crisp and beautiful tones. After the female cultivator landed, her face reddened as she said, "Senior, this is Junior's home. This area was originally not of the XIAN sect. That is why Senior apprentice brother didn't know about the ancient transfer array. Junior found a secret passage by luck, and found that there was an ancient transfer array under the building." Wang Lin nodded. Before, when he scanned the area with his divine sense, he checked this area but didn't find anything. Now, checking it at close range, he scanned with his divine sense and immediately found a small fluctuation of spiritual energy underground. Clearly, someone used a technique to hide the transfer array. He was very shocked. It has to be said that according to the map, this was only a rank 2 cultivation country, yet there was a technique that could almost fool his divine sense. Under the guidance of the female cultivator, they walked into the loft. The moment he walked in, there was a surge of fragrance. The inside looked very graceful and very feminine. Wang Lin's gaze swept through the room. His gaze fell on a screen for a bit, but he quickly withdrew it. The female cultivator's face reddened even more. She used the moment before her 2 senior apprentice brothers walked into the door to move close to the screen and put away the almost transparent inner wear that was hanging on the screen. She lowered her head, her face red, and didn't dare to look at Wang Lin. Wang Lin pretended he didn't see anything. Under the guidance of the female cultivator, they walked toward the transfer array. Although he looked very calm, Wang Lin was constantly on guard. If there was anything off, then he would act without any hesitation. Under the loft, Wang Lin saw the ancient transfer array. The ancient transfer array seemed well maintained and was usable. He took out 2 cores of low-quality spirit beasts and threw them at the female cultivator. He said, "Refine pills with them. They will help you with your cultivation." The female cultivator looked at the cores and was shocked. She revealed a look of ecstasy as she felt the surge of spiritual energy within them. If she consumed the pill refined from them, she would be able to reach the late stage of core formation. She carefully accepted them and put them inside her bag of holding. The 2 core formation cultivators couldn't help but reveal looks of envy. Wang Lin glanced at the 2, then walked into the transfer array. He waved his hand and a fog blocked the people outside from looking in. Then he took out a top-quality spirit stone and placed it into the socket. The transfer array lit up and Wang Lin disappeared from the transfer array. The female cultivator looked at the empty transfer array with a hint of sadness in her heart. Suddenly, she remembered something and her face reddened again. Zhao was at the very edge of the Kong continent. It was not a large country. In fact, it was only half the size of Hofun. Although there were spirit veins, the production was very little and just enough to support the country, so even when they were open to mining, there was a limitation on the mining. Because of the scarcity of spirit veins, spirit herbs also became very rare. It could be said that Zhao was a very small border country. Nowadays, the number 1 sect in Zhao was the Xiandao sect, and its ancestor Punanzi had reached the late stage of nascent soul all those years ago. In these 400 years, although he hadn't reached the spirit severing stage, his cultivation level had greatly increased and the other late stage nascent soul cultivators weren't a match for him at all. In addition to the Xiandao sect, the orthodox sects of Zhao, like the ethereal sect, had not done as well as before and gradually became a second-class sect. At the same time, the Nirvana sect and Yuan Kuei sect also suffered the same fate. Because of Punnanzi's existence, their sects had also been pushed to second class. As for the demonic sects, Heaven's Road sect, He Huan sect, and Wu Feng sect, they had been doing better. Although they couldn't compare with Punnanzi, they were ahead above the orthodox sects. It was just that under the strong grip of Punnanzi, the demonic and orthodox sects of Zhao stopped fighting each other as much. Although there were still some conflicts, they were all small conflicts that never became big engagements. It could be said that the current Zhao was under Punnanzi's complete control, slowly heading toward a rank 4 cultivation country. Once Punnanzi reaches the spirit severing stage, becoming a rank 4 will easily come true. In addition to these sects, quite a few famous people had appeared in these 400 years. Like Xiandao sect's genius Wang. This person only took 200 years to reach the core formation stage and another 400 years to reach the late stage of core formation. This type of cultivation speed was very rare in Zhao. Beyond this, all of the other sects had geniuses that appeared, but compared to the Tang family, they weren't up to par at all. In the past 400 years, besides Punnanzi becoming well-known, the other notable person was from the Tang family. Tang family's ancestor, Donghua, was at the early stage of nascent soul 400 years ago. Then, with Punnanzi's help, he reached the late stage of nascent soul and became one of the top cultivators in Zhao. In Zhao, as long as one reached the nascent soul stage, they would receive a lot of power and a high status. Of course, this was only if they listened to Punnanzi's orders. Punnanzi set a rule that everyone in Zhao must follow. They must not care about how much resources they used. They must create one spirit-severing cultivator from the nascent soul cultivators to raise Zhao to a rank 4 country. With the increase in Tonghuayan's cultivation level, the status of the Tang family also increased. The family's prospects increased and had many descendants, making them the #1 cultivation family in Zhao. The descendants of the family were disciples of almost every single sect, and some of them even held a very high position in those sects. At the same time, Tang Huayuan married off a lot of their daughters to geniuses in order to solidify the Tang family's foundation. Wang became one of the Tang family's sons-in-law. It could be said that the Tang family had already been deeply integrated into the country of Zhao. It was not like no one had any idea about the Tang family, but most of the time Tang Huayuan didn't even need to act. Those with ideas against the Tang family would disappear. As for what Tang Huayuan was doing, Punnanzi didn't question it a bit. He was wholeheartedly invested in trying to break into the spirit-severing stage. Tang family city had already been expanded 6 times in the past 400 years. It was now a huge city that was known throughout Zhao. There was a secret chamber 100 feet under Tang family city. The chamber had 10 times the spiritual energy of the outside. The reason for this was that it was on top of a spirit vein. Although this spirit vein wasn't large, it was more than enough for cultivation. Because the Tang family ancestor found out about this spirit vein, he used each time the city expanded to slowly dig a chamber for himself. This was something not even Punnanzi knew about, and only a few members of the Tang family knew about it. Only when someone was about to make breakthrough would they be allowed to use the chamber. On this day, inside the underground secret chamber, an old man with a head full of white hair opened his eyes, revealing a sharp gaze. This person's brow knitted. When he was cultivating, he suddenly felt a sense of bloodlust. This feeling caused the spiritual energy in his body to go into chaos. The old man pondered a little. His right hand formed a seal and shot out a white light that floated before him. He quickly said a few complicated words, and soon, the white light flickered and shook before him. Gradually, his expression became more and more serious as he looked at the light. But just at that moment, the white light violently trembled. It went out of his control and dissipated without a trace. The old man's face suddenly became gloomy. He muttered to himself, "Strange, not even Punnanzi's spirit detecting technique is able to tell where the bloodlust is coming from." He pondered a little and a cold light flashed through his eyes. He thought, "With my current cultivation level and connections in Zhao, even if the owner of this bloodlust comes here, I can easily get rid of them." This person was the Tang family ancestor that killed Wang Lin. Tang family symbol. Donghua. Thanks to the passage of time, he looked older. Although his cultivation level was higher, he was clearly very different from the person who made Wang Lin explode. His entire person felt much more subtle. This feeling was like someone who enjoyed to fight became a very sly and cunning person overnight. There was a very stark contrast. He took a deep breath and disappeared from the secret chamber. When he reappeared, he was inside the Tang family's ancestral home. The Tang family's ancestral home was 3 stories tall with a dragon carved onto it. Overall, it looked very majestic and emitted waves of spiritual energy. When Tang Huayuan appeared, he arrived at the 3rd floor. On the 3rd floor were countless tablets with names carved onto them. All of these names were names of core Tang family members who had died. Tang Huayuan's gaze swept across the tablets and landed on one that was on the top shelf. That tablet clearly read, Tang Li. In the past 400+ years, every time he felt disturbed or upset, he would come here and look at that tablet. This had basically become one of his habits. After a long time, he waved his hand and the tablet flew into his hand. He wiped the tablet and muttered to himself, "Li Er, you died too young. With your talent, if you were still alive, you would be at the nascent soul stage already." He sighed, put the tablet back and turned around to leave. At that moment, outside Tung family city, 2 sword lights were flying toward the city. 100 feet away from Tung family city, the 2 sword lights landed, revealing a man and a woman. The man was middle-aged and slightly older, but still looked very handsome. He was clearly handsome and stunning in his youth. This person was wearing a robe full of white and had the feel of a cultivator. The woman wasn't stunning, but emanated a very elegant aura. She was also wearing a white robe. Her eyebrows were locked. Clearly, she had some trouble in her mind. The middle-aged man raised his head and looked at Tung family city as a complex look flashed across his eyes. The woman sighed and whispered, "Wang Zhua, it has been many years since that happened. Can you still not just let go?" The middle-aged chuckled and blandly said, "Let go? If I can let go of the grudge of killing my mom, my dad, and my entire clan, then I, Wang Zhua, am not human." The woman pondered a little and whispered, "I only came back to see my younger sister. In 3 days we will leave. In these 3 days, please don't be impulsive, okay? You can relax. Before I have the strength to kill that old thief, I won't act." The middle-aged man's voice was bland, and once he finished speaking, he walked forward. The woman secretly sighed as she quickly followed and walked to Tung family city with Wang Zhua. As the woman walked, she whispered, "Wang Zhua, you really shouldn't blame this matter on ancestor. The person you should hate is that Wang Lin. Even though he is dead, all of this was caused by him." The middle-aged man suddenly stopped. He turned around and said word for word, "Tung Xiuxiu, I have already told you to never say the name Wang Lin in front of me. Today I give you one last warning. If you dare to bring him up again, don't blame me for being ruthless." The woman pondered a bit and no longer spoke, but went into Tung family city with Wang Zhua. At that moment, at the edge of Zhao, in an unknown valley, there were suddenly flashes of bright light. Slowly the light faded. A white-haired youth walked out of the valley. On his forehead was a purple star. He looked at the land in the distance and then turned toward the east. He knelt down and mercilessly kowtowed a few times. A killing intent showing the 400+ years of hatred flashed across his eyes as he muttered, "Father, Mother, Taizhu came back. This time I'll make a river of blood flow in Zhao. If I break this oath, let my soul be destroyed." A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky, sending out waves of thunder. In a wave of rushing raindrops, a layer of fog formed Hengyu Mountain. The Xiandao sect was shrouded in rain and fog with bolts of lightning flashing down accompanied by the roar of thunder. The foliage made popping sounds as the rain poured down. On this rainy night, a white-haired youth walked slowly through the forest. Every step he took in the soaked foliage created a rustling sound. From a distance, this person looked at the Xiandao sect on top of Hengyu Mountain. After a long time, he withdrew his gaze. His target this time was a small village hundreds of kilometers away. In the middle of the night at the mountain village, besides the roaring thunder, there was only the sound of rain hitting the ground. Of course, there would be a few howls from some of the dogs raised by the villagers. It was as if they wanted to defy this weather. However, the only response was even louder thunder. The entire village was dark as the white-haired youth walked along the main road, looking at the familiar scene mixed with unfamiliar elements. His eyes were no longer filled with coldness, but with melancholy. This melancholy could even melt ice as it was filled with an unimaginable amount of familial love. 400 years had passed in an instant. Although it didn't seem long for cultivators, it had been many generations for ordinary people. All of the houses in the village had been rebuilt by their descendants and now looked different from before. This person was Wang Lin. He looked around at the houses in the village. His gaze stopped at one house, remembering that there used to be a large tree there. He often read books and played with his friends under that tree. In the blink of an eye, all of that had disappeared. Wang Lin secretly sighed and slowly walked forward. After a short period of time, he stopped as he stared at a very familiar house. His body started to shake as he looked at the house. All of the other houses in the village had changed, but this house was still exactly the same as it was back then. Wang Lin bit his lower lip and opened the main gate. The gate creaked as it opened. He closed it after he entered. In the yard was a wooden table with several small wooden chairs under an overhang. Wang Lin silently watched the scene as tears fell from his eyes. After a long time, Wang Lin walked to the house. opened the door and stepped inside. Everything was left as he remembered, as if nothing had changed. At the moment, Wang Lin felt like everything that had happened in the past 400 years was a dream, and that he had just woken up. His parents were no longer dead, and their souls weren't inside the heaven-defying bead. They were inside his house and they had gone to bed in this rainy night. However, with his divine sense, he knew without even spreading it out that there was no one inside this room. In the center of the main room, Wang Lin saw two memorial tablets, one above the other. The one above read, Wang Tianshui Zhou Tingsu. The lower tablet read, Eldest son, Wang Lin. Under the two memorial tablets was an incense burner with some unused incense sticks next to it. Wang Lin's eyes were filled with sadness as he lit up 3 incense sticks and placed them in the incense burner. He slowly knelt on the ground. He mercilessly kowtowed a few times and muttered, This unfilial son is here to offer incense this time. Next time, I'll build a tower made of the Tang family's heads for my parents. An aura of killing intent escaped from Wang Lin. The room instantly became even colder than the rainy night outside. After he finished, he pondered for a while, then suddenly moved and disappeared from the spot. After a while, one could see a horse carriage racing toward the house from the mountain village. Driving the carriage was an old man in white robes. It was clear that he was a martial artist in the mortal world. He snapped the whip in his hand and with a popping sound, the horse moved even faster. The ground was uneven, which caused the carriage to keep bobbing up and down, but the old man seemed to be glued to the carriage. He remained unfazed and would sometimes shout, Go! Soon the carriage got close to the house. The old man let out a shout and tightened his hold on the reins. The horses let out a cry as their front legs went up into the air, and the carriage stopped in front of Wang Lin's home. The old man jumped off the carriage and respectfully opened the door. The moment the door opened, a girl jumped out of the carriage. She was wearing a green shirt, her hair was tied up in a bun, and she looked very pretty. After the girl got out of the carriage, her body shivered. Clearly, the coldness of the weather had gotten to her. However, she didn't mind. She opened up an umbrella and said with a crisp voice, My lady, we are here. An exquisite figure came out of the carriage and stood under the umbrella. This girl's face was pale. It had the look of a sickly beauty. The moment she came out, her body shivered. The servant girl quickly held the umbrella in one hand and grabbed a large purple coat from the carriage with her other hand. With the help of the old man, they placed the coat on the young woman. At the same time, the servant girl said with discontent, My lady, why did we have to come here tonight in the rain? We could have just come tomorrow instead. What if you catch a cold? Even the old man's eyes showed a sign of regret in his warm gaze. That young lady smiled. As she walked, she said, You guys don't know this, but before grandfather died, he said that no matter what happens, a descendant must come here to visit this place on this day. It is a family tradition. The servant was still not happy and said, My lady, this place is so far from the capital. Why must we come here every day? Could there be something important hidden here? I heard from the other servant that this place used to be one of the Wang family's branch locations. The young lady stopped the old man from opening the gate and raised her own jade-like hand to push it open. She smiled at the servant girl and said, This is the first time you've come with me, so you don't know. When we have time, I'll tell you. After entering the courtyard, the 3 of them didn't hesitate and immediately entered the house. The servant girl closed the umbrella, shook the water off it, then curiously looked around the room. As for the old man, he silently stood at the doorway. The young lady took a deep breath. Just as the servant girl was about to walk up, the young lady stopped and said, You wait with Grandpa Li out here. I'll go in myself. The servant pouted, but obediently nodded. The young lady smiled, coughed a few times, then slowly walked toward the main hall. After entering the main hall, the young lady looked at the 2 tablets. She took place some bedding in front of the tablets and knelt on the ground. After kowtowing a few times, she was about to take out a few incense sticks, but her eyes suddenly locked onto the 3 incense sticks that were almost burned out. Just as she was about to cry out, she felt a gust of cold air in the room. She froze up and her forehead was covered in cold sweat. She felt that if she moved, she would be killed instantly. She saw a young man with a head full of white hair slowly walk into the room. Wang Lin looked at the young lady and blandly asked, Whose descendant are you? The young lady's face was filled with horror. She constantly trembled as cold air penetrated her body. Even her voice trembled as she asked, "Who are you? And why are you at the Wang family's ancestral home?" Wang Lin looked at the young lady. He waved his hand. The cold air around her disappeared and was replaced by a sense of warmth. The young lady's body felt warm as she revealed a shocked expression and looked at Wang Lin. However, she secretly moved her right hand and touched her waist. Suddenly, a fierce gust of wind created by the force palm rushed into the room along with the old man. However, the moment the old man entered the room, he slumped over and fell asleep. The young lady's face became pale. Wang Lin didn't even glance at the old man that passed out and blandly said, "I'll ask you again, whose descent are you?" In reality, the moment he saw his house, he already had a suspicion. It was impossible for the house to remain the same without someone taking care of it. Although the house looked the same, it had been rebuilt to look like what it was before. The young lady revealed a determined look. She clenched her teeth and said, "My father is Wang Yun. Since you already followed me here, why even bother asking these questions?" Wang Lin frowned and asked, "What do the people whose names are carved on these tablets have to do with you?" "It's the ancestral home of my ancestor's brother." The young lady was very confused. If he was someone sent by one of her father's enemies, why was he asking these questions? Wang Lin's heart shook. His voice was no longer bland. It instead trembled a bit as he asked, "What is the name of your ancestor?" The young lady hesitated a bit and answered, "Ancestor's name is Tian too." She felt that this person was very strange. After Wang Lin heard the name, his body immediately shook. He muttered, "Fourth uncle." Speaking of the Wang family, aside from Wang Lin's own parents, the one he cared the most for was fourth uncle. After hearing news of fourth uncle, he couldn't help but become excited. Scenes of fourth uncle replayed in Wang Lin's head. After a long time, he sighed and looked at the young lady. His gaze was filled with a complex emotion, a look one would have when looking at their own descendant. He slowly said, "Your ancestor, at what age did he die?" The strange look on the young lady's face became even deeper as she answered, "Ancestor died at the age of 98. When he was middle-aged, he caught the attention of an immortal of the Piao Miao sect. After he got off the mountain, he started his life in the capital and became one of the vassals of the royal family. That was also when the foundation of the Wang family started." There was a hint of relief in his eyes as he asked, "Fourth, your ancestor's son Wang Hu also died?" The young lady's eyes were shocked as she muttered, How do you know about the ancestor's son Wang Hu? 3 years after the ancestor died, he also died. Time passes and people come and go. After Wang Lin heard about fourth uncle, his mentality underwent a change. After a long time, he looked at the young lady and slowly said, "There is harmful energy inside your body. Was your mother injured when she was pregnant with you?" After hearing Wang Lin's words, the young lady's mind was in complete chaos. It has to be said that if Wang Lin had carefully inspected her and had some clues, then it would have made sense if he managed to guess some of her secrets. However, very few people knew about the yin energy in her body and most just thought that she was born with a weak body. The young lady looked at Wang Lin. She asked with a trembling voice, "You, who the hell are you?" The young lady had already thrown out the idea that he was an assassin sent by her father's enemies. If he was, why would he know so many things? Wang Lin waved his right hand and a cloud of green mist started to gather at the young lady's forehead. The color of the cloud became deeper and deeper until Wang Lin finally waved his hand and the gas disappeared without a trace. The young lady suddenly felt her body warm up. The coldness that had bothered her for 20+ years disappeared with just a wave of his hand. This suddenly reminded her of a type of person from the myths. The young lady bit her lower lip and asked, You are an immortal?" Wang Lin chuckled. "Immortal, sort of." Seeing that fourth uncle had descendants and that they were doing well in the capital, Wang Lin couldn't help but feel relieved. Wang Lin pondered a little. He looked at the young lady and said, "Speaking of which, I'm considered your ancestor too. I made an agreement with fourth uncle that if I successfully become an immortal, I would protect his family to repay him for giving me the chance to become one." With that, he slapped his bag of holding and took out bottles of pills and continued, "There are 72 pills here. Every descendant can take 1 pill. They mustn't be greedy. but you are allowed to take 3. After giving the bottle to the young lady, he pondered a bit and pointed his finger between her brow. After extracting a drop of blood, he slapped his bag of holding and took out a piece of jade. He left a sliver of his G realm inside the jade, then turned to the young lady. His expression was serious and cold as he said, "I have left a small piece of my divine sense inside this piece of jade. No cultivator in Zhao will be able to last more than a moment under its might. However, this jade can only be used 3 times. For now, you hold on to it. Only descendants of the Wang family can use it. Be careful and use it wisely." After throwing the jade at the young lady, Wang Lin waved his sleeves and disappeared from the room. The young lady stared dumbfounded at the pills and jade in her hands, still feeling like she was dreaming. The old man that fell on the ground slowly woke up. His eyes suddenly lit up as he got up, walked next to the young lady and asked, "My lady, what exactly just happened?" At this point, the servant girl also came in. Only after seeing that the young lady was fine did she let out a breath. Her face reddened as she said, "My lady, Chui'er was too tired and accidentally fell asleep." The moment the old man heard those words, his face became ugly. He clearly remembered that the young lady had sent him a signal, but the moment he entered the room, he lost all control and fell asleep. "It's okay. Don't overthink all of this. Let us go back to the capital." The young lady took a deep breath and stood up. The sickly complexion had disappeared from her face and was replaced with a healthy, red glow. The old man was the first to notice the abnormality. He said with a shocked voice, "My lady, you." At that moment, the servant girl also noticed the difference and revealed an expression of disbelief. The young lady let out a smile. She didn't explain. She turned around and looked at the 2 tablets in the room, especially the one that said Wang Lin. Then she turned around and left the room. With her cleverness, she already had an idea of what happened, but to confirm her speculation, she must check the family tree back at the capital. She believed that this time, father will take time from his busy schedule to check the family tree with her. After leaving the village, the warmth on Wang Lin's face disappeared as he became more serious. His entire body emitted a strong murderous aura. He quickly flew in one direction. His heart was set on completing his revenge. If he directly killed Donghua, then all of the descendants would scatter, preventing Wang Lin from achieving his dream of wiping out the Tang family. Most importantly, if he simply killed Donghua, it wouldn't appease the anger in his heart. He wanted Donghua to watch as he killed all of his descendants, to suffer through the pain of having your family killed. Only after that would Wang Lin finally kill Donghua. He spread out his divine sense and easily covered the entire country of Zhao. He easily found Tang family city where Donghua was and flew toward it like lightning. Wang Lin stopped 10,000 kilometers away from Tang family city. He stuck a formation flag into the ground and with a wave of his hand, the flag disappeared. Then Wang Lin flew around the Tang family city and placed 16 formation flags. He stared at Tang family city with eyes filled with bloodlust, let out a cruel smile and whispered, "Starting today, one can enter Tang family city, but they can't leave. Donghua, my revenge has just started." His eyes were cold as he quickly formed seals with his hand. He floated up into the air. As he let out a roar, he quickly hit pressure points on his own body. Soon, a green gas came out of his body and wrapped around him. Behind him, a figure that looked like an ancient demon god appeared. Wang Lin put one knee on the ground. He poked his right finger and a drop of blood appeared. He shouted, "Teng Li's soul appear." Suddenly, the illusionary demon god opened its mouth and swallowed the drop of blood. Then it spat out a weak green light. The green light slowly descended. Wang Lin caught the green light and the illusionary demon god slowly disappeared. This was a small technique he learned from the memories he inherited from the ancient god. This technique allowed him to recover the soul of anyone he had killed. However, the soul would only last half an hour. The returned soul didn't have any memories, only some basic instincts. To the ancient god, it was a useless technique that could only really be used to temporarily increase the power of magical treasures. But the moment Wang Lin found this technique, he came up with a series of revenge plans. Holding Teng Li's soul, Wang Lin swallowed it without a second thought and covered the entire country of Zhao in his divine sense again. Slowly, one bright after another appeared in Wang Lin's divine sense with the help of Teng Li's soul. Each of those bright dots represented someone with Teng family blood in their body. These people, no matter if they were from the main branch, sub-branch, or were descendants of Teng family females that married out, they all appeared in Wang Lin's divine sense. It could be said that as long as they had any Teng family blood in them at all, Wang Lin had found them. Wiping out a family was not something as simple killing all of the Teng family members. Wang Lin must kill anyone with Teng family blood to wipe out all descendants of the Teng family. That is what it truly means to wipe out a family. Gradually, more and more bright dots appeared in Wang Lin's divine sense, and his smile became more and more cruel. Throughout the years, the number of descendants of the Teng family had already reached an unimaginable degree, and every single one of their soul signatures was memorized by Wang Lin. Half an hour passed in an instant and Teng Li's soul that was devoured by Wang Lin dissipated. Wang Lin's right hand slapped his bag of holding and the mosquito beast suddenly appeared. He stood on the mosquito beast and flew toward the closest sect. There was a total of 7 Teng family members there. Teng XIAN was one of the 6th-generation disciples of the Teng family. He had already reached the early stage of core formation. One of the reasons he had gotten this far was because he was from the Teng family. The other reason was that he entered the sect as a disciple of one of Tian Dao sect's nascent soul ancestors. The Teng family had a total 6 family members in the Tian Dao sect, and all of them had considerable status in the sect. Of course, the one with the highest position was still Teng XIAN. After all, the other 5 were only at the foundation establishment stage. Teng XIAN was very satisfied with what he had, whether it was his cultivation partner or his current position. Of course, all of this was nothing compared to the core members of the Teng family, but he knew his own limitations and that those were not people he could compete with. Even among the countless Teng family members, how many could really compete with those geniuses? Teng XIAN only wished to reach the late stage of core formation before he dies. Today, his little sister, Teng Yu, will be visiting him. When he thought of his little sister, his lower half heated up. He and his little sister had a great secret. They had slept together when they were young and have kept doing so in secret. Teng XIAN knew that his little sister was very lewd. As they grew up, many other Teng family members had a taste of her, and even some family members of the previous generation have had some affairs with her. But he didn't care. Whenever he thought of the bedroom techniques his little sister had learned in the He-Huan sect, he just couldn't wait. He quickly arrived at the loft in the back mountain with those heated thoughts in his head. He opened the door and suddenly, a very seductive body emitting a soft fragrance landed in his arms. Wang Lin traveled quickly and soon saw the sect on top of the mountain peak. The 3 words on top of the main entrance read, Tian Dao Sect. Wang Lin didn't stop at all and charged toward the sect. Suddenly, a light screen appeared as the grand formation protecting the sect activated to block Wang Lin. Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and the restriction flag appeared in his hand. Wang Lin shook the flag and dozens of restrictions shot toward the light screen. Without any hesitation, the light screen broke and a rumbling sound spread throughout the Tian Dao sect as rocks and dust flew all over the place. Almost instantly, the few nascent soul ancestors came out of their closed-door training and looked at the sky in shock. The mosquito beast under Wang Lin's feet noticed his master's killing intent and quickly charged toward the nascent soul cultivators. Those nascent soul cultivators secretly cursed. Just as they were about to take out their magic treasures to fight, Wang Lin sent out a message that came down upon the entire sect like divine retribution. I have a personal grudge with the Teng family descendants. Anyone that gets in my way will die. Wang Lin put a bit of his divine sense into his message. This message came from the sky, and the lower it got, the lower it became. The message roared across the Tian Dao sect. The nascent soul cultivators that heard it coughed out blood, causing them all to reveal horrified expressions. At the same time, Wang Lin jumped off the mosquito beast. His gaze quickly fell on one of the disciples of the Tian Dao sect in the square outside the main hall. The youth was terrified. Wang Lin let out a cruel smile. He waved his hand and the youth flew toward him. The youth's hand was around his own neck as he struggled and tried to say something. It was unfortunate, but he shouldn't have been named Teng. Wang Lin squeezed his right hand and with a cracking sound, the youth's eyes bulged and he immediately died. Wang Lin's left hand slapped his bag of holding, and took out a soul flag that absorbed the soul of this Tang family member. Wang Lin threw the youth's body behind him. At the same time, a long dragon banner flew out of his bag of holding. The banner wrapped around the body. The banner was held by the mosquito beast. All of this happened in plain view of the entire Tiandao sect. Wang Lin killed this person quickly and cleanly. Then, he charged into the main hall toward another youth. The youth had a look of indignation and his fists were clenched. After this, he would never have the chance to unclench them. All of this was because his name was Tang. Wang Lin's right palm hit the youth's head. The youth's internal organs were destroyed and his soul was taken away by the soul flag. There was no pity in Wang Lin's eyes as his body moved again. At that moment, the nascent soul cultivators of the sect had caught up. A red-faced man quickly appeared before Wang Lin. Although he was frightened, he quickly said, "Fellow cultivator, please stop. If there is any problem, we can talk about it." Wang Lin didn't even look at the person. His G realm immediately moved and in a flash, the red-faced man's eyes went dim. As Wang Lin moved past him, he hit him, causing his body and nascent soul to shatter into pieces and fall to the ground. A voice as cold as winter came out of Wang Lin's mouth. "Anyone who tries to stop me has committed the same crime as the Tang family." The hearts of the surrounding nascent soul cultivators suddenly shivered. They froze and didn't dare to move again. Wang Lin left the main hall and flew within the sect. The nascent soul cultivators all hesitated. One of them took out a piece of jade and printed a message on it, then threw it out. The jade quickly flew away and disappeared into the distance. Then the nascent soul cultivators all looked at each other. They bit their lower lips and decided to follow Wang Lin. Although they didn't dare to stop Wang Lin, if they didn't even dare to follow him, then they really weren't fit to be nascent soul ancestors. A very beautiful woman was flying toward the Tiandao sect with a panicked expression. She didn't want to die. Her eyes were filled with fear. She didn't want to die, but her name was Tang. Wang Lin ruthlessly crushed the woman's spine. After collecting her soul, he threw her body backward. The dragon banner once again flew out and wrapped around the body. At the moment, there were 3 bodies on the dragon banner. Wang Lin didn't stop. Of the 4 people remaining, 2 of them were in the back mountain and the other 2 were running away. One of them was almost out of the Tiandao sect's formation's range. Wang Lin's eyes were as cold as ice. He moved and instantly appeared outside the Tiandao sect. He saw a youth frantically flying and constantly looking back. However, the head that the youth turned back would never have a chance to turn back around again because his name was Tang. Wang Lin flicked his finger at the youth's chest. The youth's body shook and he immediately died. Wang Lin trapped the youth's soul, threw the body back toward the dragon banner, then flew toward his next target. The nascent soul cultivators following close behind him were horrified. They all had the same thought. When did the Tang family offend a fiend like this? This fiend's cultivation was at an unimaginable level. Yet he didn't go fight Donghua. Instead, he was here killing the Tang family descendants. Clearly, he had a very deep grudge against the Tang family and wanted to wipe out the entire family. These nascent soul cultivators felt a chill in their heart, and their steps unconsciously slowed down. Wang Lin's eyes were still cold as killing intent slowly surrounded his body. He let out a cruel smile as he locked onto the 5th person. This person was the oldest out of everyone here. His hair was already all white, but his cultivation level wasn't very high, only at the peak of foundation establishment. The old man's face didn't show any signs of panic or grief, but instead had a very serious expression. As he was flying, he repeatedly took out message transmission jades, filled them with a bit of his divine sense, then threw them out. However, his fate had already been decided because his name was Tang. When Wang Lin appeared before him, he stopped flying as he sullenly looked at Wang Lin and said, "Senior, what grudge do you have with our Tang family? There must be a misunderstanding." Wang Lin didn't say a word. Without letting the old man finish, he waved his hand and a black flying sword flew out of his bag of holding. The black sword pierced through the old man's chest. The old man's body turned black. He died before he could finish speaking. Wang Lin sealed the soul, bound the body, and flew toward the back mountain. Every time Tang XIAN met with Tang Yu, he would open up the formation for the loft in the back mountain to hide all traces of their presence. However, this also meant that he wouldn't be able to feel the outside, but in terms of safety, this was the best way. After all, he and Donghua were brother and sister. If he was found out, his reputation would be ruined. Although Donghua had been sleeping around with a lot of people, including Donghua family members, people kept that in their hearts and never spoke about it. If he was caught in bed with her, then it would be a completely different matter. As a result, he didn't know about anything that had happened outside. All he saw was Donghua's alluring eyes and delicate body. After a few piercing growls, XIAN fiercely pounded Donghua as if he is trying to rip her apart. Donghua quickly activated the He Huan sex technique, and at that moment, both of them reached the peak of bodily pleasure. It has to be said that XIAN and Donghua were considered lucky. Although the two of them will die, they at least experienced great pleasure before they died together. XIAN took a few deep breaths and got off Donghua's body. However, he immediately noticed that something was wrong, then noticed that there was an extra person in the room. His heart shook. Just as he was about to speak, the person moved in a flash. That was the last scene he ever saw. As for Donghua, just as she opened her eyes, she saw XIAN's head fall to the ground. She immediately let out a scream. However, this scream wasn't as alluring as the screams from before, and would be the last scream of her life. They were bound to die because these two siblings were named Donghua. After killing the two of them, he sealed their souls, bound their bodies, and left the loft. The nascent soul cultivators of the sect all stood outside the loft in silence. Wang didn't even bother to look at them as he jumped onto the back of the mosquito beast and left with the dragon banner trailing behind him. On the dragon banner were 7 corpses. Wang didn't stop moving as the mosquito beast flew away from the Tiandao sect. From a distance, the 7 corpses bound by the dragon banner looked like the tails of a peacock emitting a bloody light. It wasn't until Wang disappeared in the horizon that they all finally let out a breath. One of them whispered, "The Donghua family is finished." Another person muttered, "Not just the Donghua family, the entire country of Zhao is going to go into turmoil." Then, he took a deep breath and said to the elders of the Tiandao sect that were looking his way, "Send out the order to call back all disciples that are training outside. Cut off all business relations that have to do with the Donghua family. Any of the disciples that are training outside and have formed cultivation partners with Donghua family females are to be expelled from the sect. From this day on, we will have no connections with the Donghua family." After killing 7 members of the Donghua family, Wang's eyes were still cold. One must have a firm heart to wipe out an entire bloodline. If one had a moment of weakness, they couldn't act decisively when needed and won't be able to go through it all. After all, wiping out a bloodline was not something that just anyone could accomplish. Wang's next goal was another sect that was tens of thousands of kilometers away. There were a lot of Donghua family members there, a total of 93. Wang was in no hurry. He wanted to slowly kill them to allow Donghua to struggle with the pain of watching his family die, but be unable to do anything. He wanted Donghua to feel the pain of wanting to rip open his own chest to see if his heart had shattered yet.